In the heart of the desert, where scorching winds sweep across endless golden sands, monuments rise with a precision that still baffles modern science. Pyramids aligned perfectly with the stars, tombs inscribed with symbols whose meanings remain elusive, and artifacts that suggest knowledge far beyond their time. These are the whispers of a civilization that continues to defy explanation. How were these structures built with such flawless accuracy? What secrets lie hidden in the labyrinth of their temples, their hieroglyphs, their sacred rituals? For centuries, scholars and archaeologists have searched for answers, yet some mysteries remain stubbornly unsolved, as if the past itself is guarding them. Tonight, we step into that enigmatic world, a place where human ingenuity, spiritual ambition, and the unknown converge. From ancient technologies lost to time to cryptic relics whose purpose escapes understanding, we will explore the questions that science has yet to answer. So sit back, relax, and let's journey into the most haunting and fascinating mysteries of ancient Egypt. In the quiet halls of the Egyptian Museum in Cairo, beneath the careful glow of gallery lights, rests an object both remarkable and enigmatic: the king scorpion Macehead. Carved from a single block of limestone, its smooth surface is adorned with intricate reliefs depicting a procession of figures, animals, and enigmatic symbols. At the center, a figure wearing a scorpion-shaped crown presides over a ceremonial scene, holding a hoe, an instrument of land cultivation, yet here, elevated into ritual significance. The sheer craftsmanship is breathtaking. Each figure, each animal, is rendered with a level of precision that seems almost alive, capturing gestures and expressions with astonishing clarity. To the modern eye, the Macehead is small, unassuming, yet its presence carries a weight that hints at power, authority, and a history that stretches back more than 5 millennia. The artifact is believed to date from the late pre-dynastic period, around 3100 BCE, a time when Upper Egypt was consolidating power under nascent rulers who would eventually lay the foundations for the first dynasty. Scholars generally identify the central figure as King Scorpion, a ruler whose very existence straddles the line between history and legend. Unlike later pharaohs whose names and deeds are firmly recorded, King Scorpion's life and reign are shrouded in ambiguity. The Macehead is one of the few tangible links to this shadowy figure, a window into a world where the boundaries of myth and history were fluid, where kings were as much spiritual icons as political leaders. At first glance, the relief seems straightforward: a king overseeing agricultural labor, a ritual to mark the flooding of the Nile, or a ceremonial procession celebrating territorial conquest. Yet as one examines the details, questions emerge. The scorpion motif itself is striking. Does it symbolize the king's ferocity, his divine protection, or perhaps an association with a specific deity now lost to time? The procession includes attendants carrying standards and offerings, but some figures are oddly proportioned, and certain symbols remain undeciphered, hinting at layers of meaning that elude modern understanding. Even the depiction of the Nile's inundation, or what may be represented as a river, is stylized in ways that suggest symbolic rather than literal intent. Scholars debate: was this an allegory of cosmic order, a historical record, or something else entirely? The setting of the Macehead's discovery adds another layer to its mystique. It was unearthed at the temple complex of Hierakonpolis, a site considered the religious and political heart of Upper Egypt during the late pre-dynastic period. The city itself is enigmatic, with monumental architecture, ceremonial enclosures, and tombs containing treasures that suggest a highly stratified society with complex rituals. Within this context, the Macehead may have served a dual purpose: as a ceremonial object, possibly used in public rituals to legitimize the king's authority, and as a symbolic statement of power meant to communicate his dominance to both subjects and rival polities. Yet even here, certainty dissolves. No inscriptions definitively explain the scene, leaving interpretations tantalizingly incomplete. Intrigue deepens when considering the Macehead alongside other artifacts from the same era. Similar ceremonial objects feature early forms of iconography that would become staples of dynastic Egypt: royal crowns, animal motifs, and ritualistic implements. Yet the King Scorpion Macehead is exceptional in its detail and complexity, suggesting that this was more than a simple ceremonial object. Could it reflect the consolidation of power by an early ruler whose achievements were monumental yet largely unrecorded? Or might it encode a narrative, political, religious, or even astronomical, that we no longer possess the keys to read? Some researchers have proposed that the symbols correspond to territorial expansions, marking conquests and alliances between proto-states along the Nile, though these claims remain speculative. Fringe theories also circulate, though cautiously. Some have suggested that the scorpion crown indicates a cultic or shamanic significance, linking the king to celestial phenomena or protective spirits. Others propose that the Macehead encodes a sophisticated calendrical or astronomical system, its imagery serving as an early map of the Nile and its surrounding lands. None of these ideas are universally accepted, yet they underscore the allure of an artifact that refuses to yield all its secrets. The King Scorpion Macehead exists at the intersection of history and imagination, a silent witness to a time when the concepts of kingship, divinity, and ritual were still being forged. The more one studies the relief, the more subtle details emerge: attendants with elongated robes, animals in mid-motion, architectural forms that hint at ceremonial enclosures, all carved with an attention that suggests intention rather than decoration. Why choose these specific elements? What stories were these images meant to convey to a population that may have been largely illiterate? Was the Macehead displayed in public, a tool of propaganda, or reserved for the inner sanctum of the ruler's court, a private object meant to communicate with the divine? Archaeologists can offer context, comparisons, and conjecture, yet definitive answers remain elusive. Ultimately, the King Scorpion Macehead is a testament to a civilization in its formative stages, capturing a moment of political centralization, religious evolution, and artistic sophistication. And yet, its full meaning remains just out of reach. For every detail we can explain, every figure identified, every symbol contextualized, there are elements that defy interpretation, whispering of lost knowledge, forgotten rituals, and rulers whose lives have faded into obscurity. As we trace the lines of the carving and imagine the hands that shaped it, we are left with questions as compelling as the answers we possess. Who was King Scorpion? What did his reign truly signify? And what other stories lie hidden, etched into stone, waiting for eyes capable of understanding them? In the quiet contemplation of this ancient artifact, the past refuses to be fully tamed, leaving us to wonder what mysteries remain just beyond our reach. As we leave the shadowy world of early pre-dynastic Egypt behind, our journey moves forward into the golden corridors of the 18th dynasty, to a tomb that would captivate the world, the final resting place of Pharaoh Tutankhamun. Among the countless treasures discovered within its sealed chambers, one object stands apart, catching the light in a way that seems almost otherworldly. It is a dagger, no larger than a man's forearm, yet remarkable in both form and origin. Its blade glimmers with a metallic sheen unlike any ordinary iron. The surface is cold, smooth, and unnervingly precise, as if the material itself were chosen from the heavens rather than forged from earthly ores. Even centuries after its burial, the dagger retains a subtle luster, reflecting the flickering light of a museum display, hinting at secrets still hidden in its composition. The dagger was found carefully placed within the wrappings of the young king, whose reign, brief as it was, left a lasting impression on history. Its hilt is simple yet elegant, crafted with gold and adorned with a series of delicate inlays, while the blade, its true marvel, has long puzzled scientists. Metallurgical studies reveal that the iron is extraordinarily pure, with a composition that differs significantly from contemporary smelted iron. Analysis indicates elevated levels of nickel, a telltale sign that the material originated from a meteorite, a celestial object that had traveled across the cosmos before resting, for a time, in the hands of a pharaoh. The presence of meteoric iron in Tutankhamun's dagger invites questions that blend the historical with the extraordinary. Iron was rare in Egypt during the Bronze Age. Most metal tools and weapons were crafted from bronze or copper. Meteoritic iron, however, offered a form of the metal that could be cold-worked, polished, and fashioned into precise instruments. Yet it remained scarce and almost sacred. How did artisans of the 14th century BCE acquire such a material? Was it traded from distant lands, discovered by chance, or ceremonially gifted? And what significance did it hold in the context of royal burial? Scholars have suggested that meteoric iron may have been imbued with symbolic power, its origins in the heavens granting it divine authority, or perhaps connecting the deceased king to the cosmos itself. The dagger is not merely a tool or a weapon. It is a testament to the fusion of art, science, and spiritual belief. Its edge is razor-sharp, polished to a mirror finish, suggesting both practical craftsmanship and ceremonial intention. Some have speculated that it was never meant to strike a mortal enemy, but rather to act as a conduit for protection, a talisman ensuring the king's safe passage into the afterlife. The meteoritic origin of the metal would have reinforced this belief, as the sky itself had delivered a gift of extraordinary material. To the ancients, the heavens were not distant or abstract. They were active, living realms whose fragments carried meaning and power into the earthly world. Yet the dagger raises further mysteries. The process by which ancient smiths worked with meteoric iron remains poorly understood. Modern techniques can replicate similar results only with great difficulty, suggesting a level of skill and knowledge that seems almost beyond what we would expect from a civilization still largely working with bronze. Did Egyptian artisans possess a lost metallurgical understanding? Were they guided by methods that have disappeared from human memory, or were they simply the product of trial, patience, and unparalleled craftsmanship? The precise origin of the meteorite itself remains unknown, though some have attempted to trace it through nickel content and isotopic analysis, linking it tentatively to known meteoric falls elsewhere in the Sahara. Still, the journey from sky to tomb is shrouded in uncertainty. Some theorists have taken the implications even further, suggesting that the dagger was not simply a weapon or ritual object, but part of a broader symbolic relationship between the pharaoh and the cosmos. Could it have represented celestial alignment, a literal link between king and star? Might the blade have been conceived as a marker of authority that extended beyond the earthly realm? A reminder that Tutankhamun's reign, brief as it was sanctioned by forces far beyond human comprehension. These interpretations remain speculative, yet they underscore the powerful allure of the object. It is at once tangible and elusive, historical and cosmic, familiar and utterly alien. In its quiet display, the dagger invites contemplation. Observers note the subtle sheen of the meteoritic metal, the cold precision of its edge, and the understated elegance of its hilt. It is a small object, yet it carries an extraordinary weight, connecting the human, the divine, and the cosmic. Visitors are drawn not only to its physical beauty, but to the questions it provokes. How did ancient Egyptians understand the heavens, and how did they incorporate fragments of it into their most sacred rituals? How much knowledge of metallurgy, of celestial phenomena, of symbolic cosmology was already in their grasp, yet remains beyond our current understanding. The dagger also raises a question of continuity. Whereas the king's scorpion Macehead speaks to the dawn of dynastic power and the formation of kingship, Tutankhamun's meteoric iron dagger reflects a civilization that had achieved great sophistication in both technical skill and symbolic thought. Across centuries, objects like these demonstrate the Egyptians' fascination with power, the divine, and the unknown. Yet despite the research and analysis devoted to them, they continue to provoke wonder, hinting at realms of knowledge that may have been lost or intentionally concealed within ritual and tradition. As we trace the polished edge of the dagger with our eyes, imagining the hands that once held it and the heavens from which its metal came, we are reminded of how much of history is at once illuminated and obscured. For all that modern science can reveal, the chemical composition, the methods of crafting, the likely ceremonial context, some mysteries remain. What did the Egyptians themselves believe about this rare material? Did the dagger carry a power beyond what we can measure, a symbolic or spiritual resonance lost to time? And so, as the blade glimmers in the quiet of its display case, it leaves us with questions rather than answers. Questions that reach beyond Egypt, beyond the earthly, and into the skies from which it may have fallen. The meteoric iron dagger of Tutankhamun is not merely a relic of the past. It is a bridge between worlds, a silent witness to a civilization's encounter with the cosmos, and a reminder that some mysteries, no matter how thoroughly studied, remain tantalizingly unresolved. As we step deeper into the sealed world of Tutankhamun's tomb, the focus shifts from weapons of celestial origin to the objects meant to safeguard life itself beyond the grave. Among the treasures that line the walls of the young pharaoh's final resting place, one item quietly commands attention: the Canopic chest. Nestled within a recessed chamber, intricately carved and lavishly gilded, this chest was designed to house the organs of the king, removed during the mummification process. Yet it exudes a presence that feels far greater than its size. Its surface is adorned with detailed hieroglyphs, divine imagery, and depictions of the four sons of Horus, each charged with protecting a specific organ: Imseti for the liver, Hapi for the lungs, Duamutef for the stomach, and Kebe Senuef for the intestines. At first glance, the chest appears to serve a purely functional purpose, a vessel for preserving essential elements of the body for the afterlife. But the artistry, the symbolism, and the choices embedded in its design hint at layers of meaning that transcend simple preservation. Its wood is meticulously inlaid with gold and precious stones, a careful blend of craftsmanship and reverence. The lid, shaped into a serene likeness of the king's visage, suggests not only guardianship, but an enduring connection between the mortal and divine. Every line of the carving, every choice of material, seems deliberate, as if the chest itself were a silent witness to mysteries beyond our understanding. The Canopic chest sits at the intersection of ritual, belief, and early medical practice. The ancient Egyptians believed that proper preservation of the organs was essential for the soul's journey in the afterlife, a notion that gave rise to precise, highly ritualized mummification practices. Yet the chest of Tutankhamun is exceptional. Its design and decoration reflect a sophistication that surpasses contemporary examples, suggesting that Tutankhamun's burial was intended not merely as a final resting place, but as a carefully orchestrated cosmological statement. Could the arrangement of the chest, the proportions, and the iconography carry additional symbolic significance, perhaps encoding messages about life, death, and the universe itself? Intrigue deepens when one considers the materials used in the chest's construction. Certain sections include alabaster and rare resins, substances believed to possess protective or purifying properties. The gold inlays are unusually pure, and the painted pigments retain their vivid color after more than 3 millennia. How did craftsmen of the 14th century BCE achieve such precision and durability? Was the choice of materials purely aesthetic, or were they deliberately selected for their supposed spiritual efficacy? Some scholars have suggested that the chest may have functioned as a kind of early reliquary, a conduit for divine energy, not unlike a sacred vessel, whose purpose extended beyond the physical preservation of organs into the metaphysical realm. The chest also invites questions about the interplay of secrecy and revelation in Tutankhamun's tomb. Unlike the treasures meant to display wealth or status, the Canopic chest was intimate, reserved for the afterlife, hidden from all but the most sacred eyes. Its inscriptions speak in symbolic language, invoking gods, spells, and protective rites. Yet, even with translations of the hieroglyphs, certain elements remain perplexing. Some hieroglyphs appear unusually stylized, their meaning unclear. Certain images suggest rituals or cosmic principles that are not fully understood today. Could these subtleties indicate lost knowledge, ceremonial practices, or esoteric beliefs that were never fully recorded or have since been deliberately obscured? Speculative theories naturally arise. A few researchers have proposed that the chest, like other burial objects of Tutankhamun, may encode celestial or astronomical knowledge. The Egyptians meticulously aligned tombs, pyramids, and temples with the stars, and it is conceivable that the arrangement of canopic chests, their iconography, and their placement could reflect a larger cosmic map, connecting the king to celestial cycles. Others have focused on anatomical mysteries, the precision of organ removal, the care taken to preserve specific tissues, and the application of specialized resins suggest an advanced understanding of preservation that may have been more sophisticated than previously recognized. Yet, as with so many aspects of Tutankhamun's burial, definitive answers remain elusive. The chest, though studied extensively, continues to provoke wonder rather than resolution. Its craftsmanship, its symbolism, and its silent guardianship over the king's organs suggest an intimate link between human ingenuity and spiritual aspiration. Yet the exact nature of that connection is lost to time. We are left to contemplate the lives and minds of the artisans who created it, the priests who consecrated it, and the young pharaoh for whom it was made, how they envisioned life, death, and eternity, and how they sought to bridge the gap between mortal and divine. The Canopic chest also draws attention to broader mysteries of ancient Egyptian funerary practice. How were materials sourced and transported across vast distances? What techniques enabled the preservation of pigments, metals, and resins over millennia? Were there symbolic systems embedded within the chest's construction that we have yet to decode? Even the placement of the chest within the tomb seems deliberate, aligned with ritual pathways and the king's journey through the afterlife, hinting at knowledge and beliefs that remain just beyond our grasp. In reflecting upon the Canopic chest, one cannot help but feel a sense of quiet reverence and lingering curiosity. The object, though physically small, resonates with questions about death, divinity, and the limits of human understanding. It stands as both a historical artifact and a symbol of mysteries that defy easy explanation, a bridge between what we know and what we can only speculate about. What truths did the ancient Egyptians encode in this chest that have not survived the passage of time? What messages, lost to centuries of history, might still lie hidden in the interplay of gold, wood, and pigment? And so, as we trace the delicate carvings and imagine the sacred rites performed in Tutankhamun's tomb, the Canopic chest remains a quiet enigma. It reminds us that even within the treasures of one of the most famous archaeological discoveries in history, some secrets remain deliberately, or perhaps inevitably, concealed. Its mystery invites us not only to study, but to wonder, leaving open the possibility that, like many aspects of ancient Egypt, the full story is still waiting to be revealed. From the silent, sacred chambers of Tutankhamun's tomb, where the artifacts speak of death, divinity, and the afterlife, we now turn to a different kind of ancient Egyptian knowledge, one rooted not in ritual or ceremony, but in the tangible, sometimes brutal realities of the human body. The Edwin Smith Papyrus, preserved for over 3 millennia, offers a window into a civilization that combined observation, logic, and meticulous record-keeping in ways that continue to astonish modern scholars. Unlike the poetic spells of the Book of the Dead or the symbolic depictions of canopic chests, this papyrus is remarkably pragmatic. Its worn, brownish sheets bear hieratic script in fine, deliberate strokes, detailing injuries, treatments, and surgical procedures with astonishing clarity. At first glance, the papyrus appears almost clinical, a record of trauma and healing that might not seem unusual to a modern physician. Yet its age is staggering. It dates back to around 1600 BCE, though scholars believe the knowledge it contains is far older. The document lists nearly 50 cases of injuries, primarily to the head, neck, and torso, each accompanied by descriptions of symptoms, recommended treatments, and prognoses. The text is organized in a methodical format. The injury is identified, examined, treated, and classified according to expected outcomes, ranging from an ailment which cannot be treated to an ailment which will recover. For a culture often associated in the modern imagination with mysticism and ritual, the papyrus reveals an extraordinary empirical approach, one that prioritizes observation and practical intervention over superstition. Yet even as we recognize its sophistication, mysteries emerge. The methods described are both advanced and enigmatic. Some treatments involve herbal applications, splints, and bandaging that demonstrate a detailed understanding of anatomy and injury management. In several cases, the papyrus suggests manual procedures resembling early forms of surgery, including attempts to set fractures or treat dislocations. How did Egyptian physicians develop such knowledge? Were these practices the product of systematic study, trial and error, or a combination of both? And how widely were these techniques disseminated? Were they reserved for the elite, or part of a broader medical culture accessible to commoners as well? The papyrus also hints at the integration of spiritual belief with practical medicine. While most cases focus on physical diagnosis, certain passages reference the intervention of deities, protective charms, or ritual incantations. These references are sparse but deliberate, suggesting that ancient Egyptians did not see a strict separation between the material and the spiritual. Could this integration reflect a worldview in which healing required both technical skill and divine favor? Was the papyrus meant to be a manual strictly for practitioners, or did it also serve as a text reinforcing the sacred authority of the physician as an intermediary between the living and the divine? Intrigue deepens when we consider the anatomical knowledge embedded in the text. The papyrus demonstrates a surprisingly accurate understanding of the human body, particularly the vascular and neurological systems. Descriptions of pulse, bleeding, and the effects of trauma indicate that the writers observed patterns of injury and recovery with meticulous attention. Some cases suggest a grasp of cause and effect relationships that prefigure later medical theory by centuries. How did this knowledge develop in a society without formalized dissection or modern instruments? Did Egyptian physicians experiment directly on human bodies? Or were their observations drawn from battlefield injuries, labor accidents, or animal analogs? The answers remain uncertain, leaving room for wonder at their empirical sophistication. The Edwin Smith Papyrus also raises questions about lost knowledge. Certain treatments described in the text are remarkably advanced, yet later medical practices in Egypt appear to have reverted to a heavier reliance on magic and ritual. Was there a decline in empirical observation? Or did the papyrus represent an exceptional strain of medical expertise that was never fully integrated into broader society? Some researchers speculate that the document reflects a specialized school of surgery, a cadre of physicians whose methods were esoteric and closely guarded, perhaps even regarded as sacred. Others propose that much knowledge was transmitted orally and has simply vanished, leaving tantalizing hints in surviving manuscripts like this one. Furthermore, the papyrus prompts reflection on the relationship between medicine and mortality. Many injuries it describes are life-threatening, yet the text does not shy away from acknowledging human limitation. Certain cases are labeled untreatable, accompanied by instructions for palliative care or ritual rites. This honesty suggests a pragmatic worldview. Healing was pursued where possible, but acceptance of death and the inevitable consequences of trauma were integral to their understanding. In this sense, the papyrus is not only a medical text, but a philosophical one, revealing how ancient Egyptians confronted the fragility of life and the inevitability of loss. Some modern scholars have speculated on even deeper enigmas. Could the papyrus contain insights into surgical techniques or anatomical observations that were so advanced they were never replicated until modern times? Was there an empirical methodology underlying its compilation that rivaled later scientific approaches, hidden within a culture often remembered primarily for pyramids and ritual? And if so, why did such knowledge not persist in a continuous lineage? The Edwin Smith Papyrus invites these questions without offering definitive answers, leaving its mysteries suspended between fact, interpretation, and the imagination. In reflecting on the papyrus, one cannot help but marvel at the intersection of observation, skill, and the enduring human desire to preserve life. Each carefully penned line, each case study, is evidence of a civilization capable of both deep practical reasoning and profound reverence for the forces beyond human control. The text bridges worlds, the tangible realities of flesh and bone, and the intangible realms of ritual and belief. It is a reminder that the ancient Egyptians, while often remembered for monumental architecture and funerary grandeur, also pursued knowledge of the human condition with an intensity that continues to astonish. As we trace the lines of the papyrus and imagine physicians applying its lessons in a world without anesthesia, antiseptics, or imaging, the sense of wonder grows. How much more did they know that has been lost? What other manuscripts, tools, or observations might have existed, hidden from history by time, decay, or deliberate secrecy? The Edwin Smith Papyrus stands as a singular testament to a sophisticated, largely invisible facet of ancient Egyptian life, a realm where observation, skill, and the mysteries of the human body intersect in ways that challenge our assumptions about history, medicine, and the limits of knowledge. And so, as we contemplate its faded ink and carefully structured cases, we are left with questions rather than answers, a sense of awe rather than closure. The mysteries of ancient Egyptian medicine endure, inviting us to consider not only what was possible thousands of years ago, but also how much remains hidden, waiting to be discovered in the spaces between the written word and the human hand. From the meticulous surgical observations of the Edwin Smith Papyrus, we now shift our gaze from the science of life to the enigmatic world of royal burial and dynastic intrigue. A world where power, politics, and belief intersect in ways that still confound modern historians. Deep in the Valley of the Kings lies a tomb unlike any other, both modest in appearance and extraordinary in implication. Tomb K55. Its narrow corridors and undecorated walls seem almost unremarkable, yet the discoveries within would ignite decades of debate, controversy, and speculation. K555 was uncovered in 1907, a cramped space buried among the grander tombs of pharaohs, yet it contained a cache of artifacts and remains that immediately suggested connection to the turbulent Amarna period. Among the objects were gilded shrines, fragments of funerary equipment, and a single, enigmatic human skeleton. The funerary assemblage included items bearing the names of Akhenaten, the revolutionary pharaoh who reshaped Egyptian religion, and other members of his immediate family, raising profound questions about identity, lineage, and the fate of a dynasty whose reforms reverberated for generations. The skeleton at the center of K555 has been the subject of almost a century of scrutiny. Scholars have long debated whether it belongs to Akhenaten himself, to Smenkhkara, his mysterious co-regent or successor, or even to another member of the Amarna royal line. Forensic analysis has revealed a complex mixture of clues. The bones suggest a male of middle age, yet their features and pathologies, elongated skull, fused vertebrae, signs of illness, have fueled theories ranging from congenital conditions to ritualized treatment in life or death. DNA studies have attempted to clarify familial relationships, connecting KV55 to Tutankhamun and other Amarna royals, yet inconsistencies remain, leaving the question of identity tantalizingly unresolved. The artifacts themselves deepen the enigma. A gilded shrine, though damaged, bears inscriptions invoking Aten, the sun disk worshipped during Akhenaten's revolutionary reign. Other items appear to predate or postdate the Amarna period, suggesting a complicated history of reuse, adaptation, or perhaps even deliberate concealment. How did these objects come to rest together in K55? Was the tomb a hasty reburial during a period of political turmoil, a repository for a once exalted ruler whose reforms had fallen out of favor, or a carefully orchestrated preservation of royal lineage in uncertain times? KV55 also embodies the tension between art, politics, and religion in the Amarna period. The Amarna style is distinctive, characterized by elongated forms, expressive features, and a striking departure from traditional Egyptian idealization. Some of these stylistic traits are echoed in the skeletal analysis itself, sparking speculation about whether art reflected medical reality or whether cultural aesthetics shaped perceptions of the royal body. Did Akhenaten's controversial reforms, both religious and artistic, extend to the treatment of his own body in death? Could the unusual features of the remains reflect deliberate manipulation, either post-mortem or as a result of ritual practices meant to convey divine favor or human uniqueness? The broader historical context adds layers of mystery. Akhenaten's reign disrupted centuries of religious tradition, elevating the worship of Aten above the old gods and relocating the capital to Akhetaten, the city now known as Amarna. Following his death, traditional religious practices were restored, and the memory of Akhenaten was systematically suppressed. In this climate of political and spiritual upheaval, the placement of the KV55 remains, and the mingling of artifacts may have been shaped by both reverence and expedience. Was KV55 an attempt to honor a controversial ruler while obscuring his identity, or simply a practical solution in a time of dynastic instability? Even the architectural simplicity of KV55 invites speculation. Unlike the grand, elaborately decorated tombs of other pharaohs, K555 is narrow, functional, almost provisional. Could this reflect the hurried conditions of burial during a period of political chaos, or was it a deliberate statement, a tomb designed to conceal rather than glorify? The juxtaposition of modest architecture and opulent artifacts creates a tension that has fascinated archaeologists for generations, highlighting the ways in which power, ritual, and secrecy were intertwined in ancient Egypt. Fringe theories have emerged alongside mainstream scholarship. Some suggest that KV55 may hold clues to lost lines of succession, hidden familial conflicts, or even deliberate tampering with the historical record. Others posit that the tomb itself may have been part of a larger network of Amarna-era burials, connected by ritual pathways or symbolic geography that we have yet to fully understand. While such ideas remain speculative, they underscore the allure of K555 as a site where evidence and mystery coexist, and where each discovery raises as many questions as it answers. The mystery of K555 is compounded by the human element. Forensic analyses suggest trauma, disease, and other pathologies in the skeleton. Yet the historical narrative leaves many gaps. Was the individual interred here subjected to political violence, ritualized treatment, or the effects of a complex medical condition? Did the artifacts accompany him as symbols of power, or were they intended to obscure identity and lineage? These questions remain open, resisting definitive answers, even as modern technology continues to probe the tomb's contents. As we reflect on KV55 and the Amarna royals, we are drawn into a story that intertwines history, art, politics, and human curiosity. The tomb is more than a repository of artifacts. It is a chronicle of a period marked by upheaval, innovation, and the ever-present tension between memory and erasure. Each object, each bone fragment, and each inscription whispers secrets of a dynasty that sought to redefine the relationship between ruler, deity, and people, yet ultimately left its history fragmented and contested. And so, as we peer into the narrow corridors of KV55, tracing the shadows of gilded shrines and imagining the lives and deaths of the Amarna royals, we are left with profound questions. Who truly lies within this tomb? And what was the story of their life and reign? How did the extraordinary changes of the Amarna period shape the preservation or concealment of royal memory? In this intersection of archaeology, history, and unresolved mystery, KV55 continues to challenge our understanding, inviting us to ponder the lives, choices, and secrets of a civilization that still holds the power to intrigue, confound, and inspire. From the intimate corridors of K555, where the mysteries of lineage and political upheaval linger in shadow, we move deeper into the Valley of the Kings to a tomb that stretches beyond human scale, both in physical grandeur and in the cosmic vision it embodies. The tomb of Ramesses VI, designated K59. Unlike the narrow and enigmatic KV55, KV9 unfolds with monumental proportions, a sprawling labyrinth of corridors and chambers carved into the rocky hillsides of Luxor. Its walls are lined with intricate inscriptions, and the air carries the quiet weight of centuries, a solemn reminder of the ancient Egyptians' obsession with eternity, order, and the heavens above. The most captivating feature of K59 is its astronomical ceiling, a vast expanse painted with celestial bodies, divine figures, and complex symbolic diagrams. The imagery depicts the sky as the ancient Egyptians conceived it, a dome adorned with stars, constellations, and deities, all intricately arranged to mirror both the physical cosmos and the spiritual pathways of the soul. As one gazes upward, the ceiling seems to pulse with meaning, a tapestry that intertwines mythology, ritual, and what appears to be precise observational knowledge. The alignment of stars, planets, and constellations has led scholars to suggest that the ceiling may have functioned not only as decoration, but as a guide to the pharaoh's journey through the afterlife, a map connecting Earth, heaven, and the divine order of the cosmos. KV9 is particularly intriguing because it was constructed during the 20th dynasty, a period of political and economic strain. Yet, despite these challenges, the tomb's builders produced an astronomical program of extraordinary sophistication. The ceiling features diagrams corresponding to decans, star groups used to mark hours and seasons, and illustrations of the sun god traversing the sky in his solar bark. The integration of celestial phenomena with funerary ritual suggests that the Egyptians possessed not only observational skill, but also a conceptual framework linking the movement of the heavens with the soul's journey in the afterlife. How much of this knowledge was empirical, carefully observed over generations, and how much was symbolic, designed to reinforce the pharaoh's divine authority? Even the placement and orientation of Cave A9 itself appear deliberate. The corridors and chambers are laid out along a precise axis, with certain passages aligned to cardinal points or solar phenomena. Some researchers have suggested that the tomb's alignment corresponds to rising or setting stars significant to Egyptian cosmology, though debate persists. Was this intentional, a reflection of advanced astronomical understanding, or a ritualistic approximation guided by tradition rather than calculation? The precision of the ceiling's imagery raises further questions. Did the ancient Egyptians possess a method of celestial mapping lost to time? Or is the sophistication of Cave A9's design a testament to a combination of observation, mathematics, and ritual intuition? The astronomical ceiling is not merely an abstract presentation. It is deeply connected to Egyptian theology and eschatology. Figures of gods and goddesses are interspersed among the stars, guiding the pharaoh's soul, overseeing celestial cycles and enforcing the cosmic order, or Ma'at. The interplay between myth and observation is subtle, yet profound. Could these depictions encode practical knowledge, seasonal patterns, stellar cycles, or calendrical systems, within the sacred context of the tomb? Or are they purely symbolic, a visual language intended to reassure the deceased and the living of the stability of the cosmos? The lines between the literal and the allegorical blur, leaving room for speculation as to the tomb's deeper significance. Intriguingly, Cave A9 also contains later modifications and reuse. Artifacts, inscriptions, and even some of the ceiling's imagery suggest that successive generations returned to the tomb, perhaps adapting its function or reinterpreting its celestial program. This layering of history adds complexity. What was originally conceived for Ramesses VI may have evolved over time, incorporating new astronomical observations, theological interpretations, or ritual needs. Could these adaptations reveal a continuity of Egyptian astronomical knowledge, or do they indicate shifts in religious and cosmological understanding as dynasties rose and fell? Some theories extend beyond conventional archaeology. Certain researchers have proposed that the ceiling may contain knowledge of precession, the slow movement of the stars over centuries, encoded in symbolic form. Others speculate that the alignment of constellations and star groups may relate to hidden astronomical phenomena such as eclipses or solstices, potentially reflecting a level of sophistication previously unappreciated in the ancient world. While these ideas remain controversial, they underscore the enduring fascination Cave A9 holds for scholars, astronomers, and historians alike. It is a tomb that operates simultaneously as sacred space, celestial map, and a record of human observation stretching back millennia. The tomb's grandeur contrasts sharply with the fragility of the human remains and artifacts within. Ramesses VI, like other pharaohs, was mortal, yet the astronomical ceiling conveys a vision of eternity, an aspiration to transcend temporal limits. The celestial program reflects both the Egyptians' awe of the universe and their desire to codify that awe into symbols, patterns, and guidance for the afterlife. Did the ancient builders intend the ceiling to serve as a literal map, a spiritual guide, or both? And what techniques enabled such precision in a time without modern instruments, compasses, or telescopes? As we stand beneath Cave 9's painted dome in the imagination, tracing the constellations, divine figures, and symbolic diagrams, we confront the intersection of observation, ritual, and mystery. The tomb invites us to consider the Egyptians' relationship with the cosmos, their understanding of time and celestial cycles, and the ways in which art, science, and spirituality coalesced within a single sacred space. Every painted star, every godly figure, every corridor aligned to cardinal or celestial points suggests knowledge that was precise, intentional, and deeply meaningful, yet ultimately inaccessible in its full complexity. Cave 9, with its astronomical ceiling, leaves us with profound questions. How much did the Egyptians truly know about the stars, the planets, and their movements? Were the ceiling's diagrams a guide for the pharaoh's journey into eternity, or did they encode a practical understanding of celestial phenomena now lost to us? And what other aspects of Egyptian cosmology, hidden in tombs and temples, remain beyond our reach, waiting silently for discovery or reinterpretation? In this vast interplay of stone, pigment, and sky, the tomb of Ramesses VI reminds us that the mysteries of ancient Egypt are as much about perspective and imagination as they are about evidence, and that the heavens, for all their constancy, continue to inspire awe and curiosity across the millennia. From the vast corridors of tombs and the painted celestial ceilings of Ramesses VI, we shift our attention to a far more fragile and enigmatic relic of Egypt's past, the Turin king list. Unlike monumental tombs or gilded artifacts, this record exists on delicate papyrus, its surface worn and fragmented, yet it holds a depth of historical insight and mystery that continues to captivate scholars. Housed today in the Egyptian Museum in Turin, Italy, the papyrus stretches nearly 2 meters in length, though much of it is torn or missing. Its faded hieroglyphs, meticulously inscribed in columns, catalog the names of pharaohs, dynasties, and the lengths of their reigns, tracing the lineage of rulers across centuries. At first glance, it seems a straightforward record, a scribal attempt to preserve the continuity of kingship. But closer inspection reveals puzzles that have confounded Egyptologists for generations. The papyrus is fragmentary, its edges tattered and some sections lost entirely to time. Gaps appear between reigns, names are erased or smudged, and certain dynasties, otherwise attested elsewhere in Egyptian history, are conspicuously absent. These omissions raise profound questions. Were some rulers deliberately erased from memory, victims of political upheaval or dynastic rivalry? Or did the compilers themselves lack knowledge of these reigns, relying on oral tradition or incomplete records? The Turin King List, despite its apparent precision, is a reminder that history is not always linear or complete, and that even the Egyptians, masters of record-keeping and monumental commemoration, grappled with the uncertainties of their own past. The list's historical context adds another layer of intrigue. Created during the reign of Ramesses II in the 19th dynasty, the papyrus was compiled centuries after many of the early kings it documents. Its purpose seems twofold: to record the succession of rulers and to legitimize the reigning dynasty by tracing a continuous lineage. Yet the scribes did not shy away from acknowledging periods of obscurity, illegitimate kings, or rulers who reigned for mere months. In doing so, they left a window into the complex, often turbulent, political landscape of pre-dynastic and early dynastic Egypt, a landscape in which power shifted frequently, and memory could be both a tool and a weapon. Some of the most tantalizing mysteries emerge from the so-called missing dynasties, rulers whose names appear nowhere else in surviving records. These absent or obscure kings invite speculation. Were they regional leaders whose authority was never consolidated, ephemeral rulers erased from monuments, or simply mistakes in transmission over generations of copying? Certain gaps in the list correspond to periods of political instability, invasions, or internal strife, suggesting that the papyrus may encode not only historical fact, but also judgment and interpretation by the compilers. What criteria did the scribes use to include or exclude a ruler? Did political considerations outweigh chronological accuracy? These questions linger, and the answers are far from certain. The physical characteristics of the papyrus further amplify its mystery. The hieratic script is delicate, executed with care, yet errors and corrections indicate a working document rather than a ceremonial object. Scholars have noted that the ink varies in tone and thickness, suggesting multiple hands at work or revisions made over time. Could these anomalies reflect competing sources, differing traditions, or perhaps even an attempt to reconcile contradictory records? The material fragility of the papyrus mirrors the fragility of memory itself. As much as it preserves, it also obscures, leaving gaps where history has been lost or intentionally altered. Beyond its immediate content, the Turin King List has implications for understanding the broader sweep of Egyptian civilization. Its chronologies hint at dynasties that preceded the well-known pharaohs of the Old Kingdom, dynasties whose existence is otherwise confirmed only through archaeological inference, later king lists, or the occasional artifact. Some Egyptologists argue that these early shadowy rulers reflect the fragmented nature of Egypt prior to unification, when local chieftains governed independently along the Nile. Others suggest that certain names may represent mythical or semi-divine figures, rulers whose historicity blends with legend. The list, in this sense, is both a historical document and a cultural mirror, revealing how the Egyptians themselves understood, interpreted, and sometimes mythologized their own past. Intriguingly, the gaps and anomalies have inspired more speculative interpretations. Could the missing dynasties conceal knowledge that was deliberately suppressed? Some fringe theories propose that lost rulers may have possessed esoteric knowledge, religious innovations, or connections to powerful lineages that later pharaohs sought to erase. While these ideas remain unproven, they underscore the tension between what is preserved and what is absent in the historical record. The very silences of the Turin King List are as compelling as the names it contains, suggesting that absence can be as informative as presence when it comes to understanding human history. The list also prompts reflection on the methodology of ancient record-keeping. How did scribes compile such a comprehensive register in an era without printing or standardized reference systems? It is likely that they drew from temple archives, oral traditions, inscriptions, and earlier king lists. Yet, despite their diligence, the process was vulnerable to loss, corruption, and reinterpretation. In this way, the Turin King List is a testament not only to the Egyptians' skill in chronicling their civilization, but also to the inherent fragility of memory and record. It is a reminder that even monumental cultures leave traces that are partial, sometimes contradictory, and always subject to interpretation. In contemplating the papyrus, one cannot help but sense the weight of time. Each column of hieroglyphs, each careful notation of reign length, represents the labor of scribes striving to preserve the continuity of human rule against the inexorable march of history. Yet for every name recorded, there is a name lost. For every reign documented, a ruler whose memory survives only in shadow. The Turin King List is at once a repository of knowledge and a record of absence, a bridge connecting what we know to what remains tantalizingly out of reach. As we trace the faded ink and imagine the ancient scribes at work, questions emerge that transcend mere chronology. How many kings have been forgotten, their reigns erased by time, politics, or the erosion of memory? What truths might have been deliberately concealed or inadvertently lost in the process of recording history? And what can these gaps teach us about the nature of power, legacy, and historical narrative itself? The Turin King List, fragile yet enduring, reminds us that history is never complete. Its mysteries endure, whispering through the corridors of time, inviting us to ponder not only the rulers it names, but also the countless others who remain hidden, waiting silently beneath the sands of Egypt. From the fragmentary hieroglyphs of the Turin king list, which chronicle rulers long forgotten and hint at dynasties lost to the shadows of history, we now turn to a monument that reaches skyward, a silent witness to the ambition, ingenuity, and mystery of ancient Egypt, the Pyramidion of Amenemhat III. Unlike the fragile papyrus preserved in a museum, the Pyramidion is a tangible fragment of stone, once perched atop a colossal pyramid, gleaming in the Egyptian sun. Though small compared to the structure it crowned, this capstone served as the pinnacle of both architecture and symbolism, a bridge between earth and sky, mortal and divine. The Pyramidion, crafted from polished granite, reflects light in a way that would have made it visible for miles, a beacon to those who approached the Pyramid of Amenemhat III at Dashur or Hawara. Its surfaces are inscribed with hieroglyphs and sacred symbols, invoking the protection of gods and the eternal reign of the king it once crowned. The inscriptions speak of cosmic order, the sun's journey, and the pharaoh's union with deities, a theology carved in stone, simultaneously asserting earthly authority and celestial alignment. Even in fragmentary form, the Pyramidion conveys a sense of purpose, precision, and a worldview that marries architecture, astronomy, and religious belief in a single, compact object. Amenemhat III ruled during Egypt's 12th dynasty, a period marked by prosperity, artistic innovation, and ambitious architectural projects. His pyramids at Dashur and Hawara represent some of the most technologically sophisticated undertakings of the Middle Kingdom. Yet, while the massive structures themselves have survived mostly as ruins, the Pyramidion endures as one of the few elements that hint at the original grandeur and intent. Its inscriptions, carefully aligned and executed, suggest an intimate knowledge of cosmology, as though the capstone were designed to capture the sun's light at specific moments, marking solstices or other celestial events. Could this small apex, perched high above the pyramid's stone blocks, have functioned as a kind of solar observatory, a symbolic reflection of the king's journey through life, death, and eternity? The Pyramidion's symbolism extends beyond the sun. Certain inscriptions invoke the stars, the horizon, and the cyclical nature of time, suggesting that the pharaoh's ascent to the afterlife mirrored the celestial patterns above. In Egyptian belief, the pyramid was more than a tomb. It was a microcosm of the universe, a tangible representation of the cosmos, and a tool for facilitating the king's transformation into a divine being. The Pyramidion, as the apex, served as the critical point of convergence, connecting the earthbound pyramid to the heavens, embodying the passage of the pharaoh's soul into eternity. How much of this symbolism was purely theological, and how much might have been informed by empirical observation of the sky? Could the Egyptians have integrated advanced astronomical knowledge into the very design of their pyramids in ways we have yet to fully understand? Intriguingly, the Pyramidion of Amenemhat III is one of the rare examples to survive from the Middle Kingdom, a period whose architectural achievements are often overshadowed by the monumental pyramids of the Old Kingdom. Its survival raises questions. Why did so few pyramidia endure? Were they looted, repurposed, or destroyed in antiquity, leaving only fragments? And what can these remnants tell us about construction techniques, symbolic priorities, and the interplay between earthly craftsmanship and spiritual aspiration? The Pyramidion, though small and isolated, invites reflection on the ambitions of its era and the continuity of Egyptian cosmological thought across centuries. The craftsmanship itself is remarkable. The granite is polished to a reflective sheen, the inscriptions carefully incised, and the angles meticulously calculated. Scholars have speculated that the Pyramidion may have been oriented with precision to align with celestial events or cardinal points. If so, this suggests a level of technical expertise in geometry and astronomy that complements the grandeur of the pyramids themselves. Could the Pyramidion have served a dual function, both as a ceremonial capstone and as a practical instrument for tracking the heavens? Or was its orientation purely symbolic, intended to harness divine favor and cosmic order in a manner comprehensible only to priests and architects of the time? Beyond its technical and symbolic aspects, the Pyramidion raises broader questions about the intentions of the Middle Kingdom pharaohs. Amenemhat III's reign was marked by centralization of power, ambitious irrigation projects, and expansion of trade and wealth. The Pyramidion, as the pinnacle of his pyramid, reflects these broader ambitions in miniature. It is a concentrated expression of political authority, religious ideology, and architectural mastery. Yet, its survival also emphasizes fragility. The fact that we possess only fragments highlights the impermanence of human endeavors, and the ways in which even objects designed to symbolize eternity are subject to the passage of time, natural forces, and human intervention. Some theorists have suggested more speculative interpretations. Could the Pyramidion, with its reflective surfaces and celestial inscriptions, have served as a focal point for ritual ceremonies? Perhaps even intended to interact with sunlight or starlight in a way that enhanced spiritual experiences? Was it possible that the Egyptians encoded knowledge of solstices, equinoxes, or stellar alignments in these capstones, linking their architecture with sophisticated astronomical observations? While mainstream archaeology approaches these questions cautiously, the precise execution and symbolic richness of the Pyramidion invite reflection on the potential depth of ancient Egyptian knowledge and its subtle integration into monumental architecture. The Pyramidion also prompts questions about continuity and change in Egyptian religious and architectural thought. How did the symbolism of Middle Kingdom pyramidia influence later constructions in the New Kingdom or beyond? Were certain techniques, materials, or alignments preserved in sacred knowledge, passed down through generations of architects and priests? The Pyramidion stands as a testament to both innovation and tradition, a bridge between the ambitions of Amenemhat III and the enduring cosmological ideals of Egyptian civilization. In contemplating the Pyramidion, one is struck by the tension between permanence and fragility, between human ambition and the inexorable passage of time. This small apex, once gleaming atop a massive pyramid, encapsulates the intersection of art, engineering, theology, and cosmology. It is both monument and microcosm, a symbol of power and a reflection of the universe, a material object imbued with spiritual significance. Its survival, though fragmentary, allows us to glimpse the aspirations of a king, the skill of ancient craftsmen, and the worldview of a civilization that sought to bridge earth and heaven. Yet, even as we study the inscriptions, measure the angles, and marvel at the polish, the Pyramidion retains its mystery. How precisely was it positioned atop the pyramid? What specific celestial alignments, if any, did its builders intend? And what knowledge, astronomical, mathematical, or theological, has been lost, leaving us with fragments that hint at greater truths we may never fully recover? The Pyramidion of Amenemhat III reminds us that every object, every inscription, every architectural detail is part of a larger puzzle, one that encompasses the ambitions, beliefs, and knowledge of an entire civilization. As we imagine the Pyramidion gleaming in the sun over 4,000 years ago, its inscriptions reflecting both the physical and spiritual cosmos, we are invited to wonder, what else might have been encoded in stone that remains hidden beneath the sands? What insights into astronomy, engineering, or spiritual practice lie undiscovered, waiting for those who can read the subtle language of geometry, light, and symbolism crafted by the hands of the ancient Egyptians? The Pyramidion, though small and fragmentary, is a pinnacle of mystery, bridging the earthly and the divine, the known and the unknowable, and reminding us that the monuments of Egypt continue to whisper secrets to those who take the time to observe, measure, and imagine. From the polished apex of Amenemhat III's Pyramidion, which once reached skyward in a reflection of cosmic order and royal aspiration, our attention now returns to the intimate and shadowed corridors of the Valley of the Kings, where another enigma silently endures. Tutankhamun's tomb, K562, discovered in 1922 by Howard Carter, is often remembered for its extraordinary treasures: gilded shrines, chariots, jewelry, and the iconic gold mask. Yet beneath the glittering artifacts and opulent displays lies a mystery that has captivated archaeologists and historians for decades: a hidden chamber concealed behind the walls of the tomb, whose purpose, origin, and contents remain uncertain. The initial discovery of K562 seemed, at first, straightforward: a small tomb for a boy king who reigned only 9 years. Its corridors were cramped, its chambers modest in comparison to the grand pyramids of the Old Kingdom. Yet the tomb's relative simplicity, juxtaposed with the richness of its contents, has led researchers to wonder whether K562 was the original resting place of Tutankhamun, or a hastily adapted space prepared in response to sudden death, political unrest, or the shifting tides of dynastic succession. The possibility that hidden chambers might extend beyond the known walls adds an additional layer of intrigue. Could there be spaces still untouched, holding relics or remains that shed light on the late 18th dynasty, on Tutankhamun's ancestry, or even on the fate of the Amarna royals? Modern technology has fueled renewed speculation. Ground-penetrating radar, thermal imaging, and 3D scanning have all suggested anomalies behind the north and west walls of the tomb's burial chamber, areas where dense stone meets voids or unexpected material differences. Some researchers propose that these hidden cavities might contain the burial of Queen Nefertiti, Tutankhamun's stepmother, and a figure whose influence and disappearance from the historical record remain enigmatic. Others caution that radar anomalies can be misleading, caused by natural variations in stone or prior excavation activity. Yet the possibility of undiscovered chambers has reignited a broader debate. How many secrets of the Valley of the Kings remain undisturbed, and what might they reveal about the political, religious, and familial complexities of late 18th dynasty Egypt? The intrigue surrounding K562 is not only architectural, but also symbolic. The tomb's walls are adorned with the Amduat, a funerary text detailing the sun god Ra's nightly journey through the underworld, complete with protective spells and celestial imagery. Could the layout of the tomb itself, including potential hidden spaces, have been designed as a physical manifestation of this journey, guiding the boy king through life, death, and eternal rebirth? Some Egyptologists suggest that concealed chambers may have served both practical and symbolic purposes: repositories for additional offerings, shrines for specific deities, or spaces intended to obscure royal remains from potential desecration. Yet, without direct access, these remain hypotheses, grounded in interpretation rather than observation. The very idea of hidden chambers invites reflection on the social and political context of Tutankhamun's death. His reign followed the tumultuous Amarna period, marked by religious revolution, the elevation of Aten worship, and the marginalization of traditional priesthoods. Tutankhamun's restoration of old religious practices may have necessitated a burial that adhered to canonical tradition while navigating the uncertain status of his family lineage. Could hidden chambers reflect an effort to accommodate multiple burials, safeguard sensitive relics, or honor individuals whose presence could not be publicly acknowledged? And what might this suggest about the intersection of power, memory, and secrecy in the Egyptian royal court? Archaeological anomalies within K562 further complicate the narrative. Some chambers appear slightly misaligned, with doorways blocked by rough masonry or irregular stone courses. Certain storage niches contain artifacts that seem out of chronological sequence, hinting at later additions or hurried modifications. The precise reasons for these inconsistencies remain debated. Were they the result of an abrupt death, a reallocation of tomb space, or intentional concealment? Could the hidden chambers have been designed as decoys, traps, or protective buffers, reflecting a culture deeply aware of tomb robbery and the vulnerability of royal remains? These possibilities, while speculative, underscore the layers of human intention and ingenuity encoded within the tomb's design. Historical records provide tantalizing, if incomplete, context. Tutankhamun's burial occurred at a time of dynastic instability, following the controversial reign of Akhenaten and the shadowy figure of Smenkhkare. His death at a young age, combined with the wealth of objects interred, suggests urgency and planning in the tomb's preparation. Yet the notion of hidden chambers hints that not all intentions were realized or revealed. Was KV-62 always meant to house additional interments? Or were these chambers a contingency plan, left unfinished and waiting for circumstances that never arrived? And how much of Tutankhamun's story, including his familial ties, political significance, and religious reforms, is encoded in the spaces we have yet to uncover? The concept of hidden chambers also invites technical inquiry. How were such spaces constructed within a limited tomb volume without disturbing the integrity of the burial? Could the ancient architects have employed architectural techniques lost to modern understanding, precise enough to create voids capable of remaining concealed for millennia? And if additional chambers exist, what will they reveal? More treasures, skeletal remains, inscriptions, or entirely unexpected discoveries that challenge our understanding of the 18th dynasty Egypt? Speculative theories abound. Some suggest that KV-62's hidden spaces might contain relics linked to the Amarna period, objects or remains deliberately separated from Tutankhamun's main burial to avoid political controversy. Others propose that advanced knowledge of burial, religious symbolism, or even celestial alignment may have influenced the placement of these spaces. While mainstream archaeology maintains rigorous standards, these hypotheses reflect the enduring allure of KV-62 as a site where historical certainty and unresolved mystery coexist. The psychological impact of the hidden chamber concept is equally significant. To stand before the gilded sarcophagus of Tutankhamun, knowing that walls may conceal secrets, evokes a profound sense of temporal depth. Each stone, each inscription, each artifact represents not only the ambition of a boy king, but also the ingenuity and foresight of those who prepared his tomb. The possibility of undiscovered chambers reminds us that even within what we think we know, layers of history remain inaccessible, waiting for discovery or interpretation. KV-62, in this sense, is more than a repository of objects. It is a narrative in stone, an architectural manuscript that encodes political intrigue, religious symbolism, and human aspiration. Every corner, every blocked doorway, every potential void suggests that the tomb was a living plan, responsive to circumstances, conscious of threats, and deliberate in its concealment. It invites reflection not only on Tutankhamun himself, but on the civilization that sought to preserve his memory against the ravages of time, theft, and oblivion. As we imagine archaeologists peering behind the tomb's walls, scanning for anomalies and interpreting subtle deviations in structure, the sense of wonder grows. Could there be chambers containing Nefertiti, or other figures of the late 18th dynasty? Are there treasures yet untouched, inscriptions yet unread, or architectural innovations hidden from view? And if these spaces exist, how might they reshape our understanding of Tutankhamun, the Amarna period, and the broader trajectory of ancient Egyptian civilization? In contemplating the hidden chamber of KV-62, we confront the tension between discovery and mystery, between tangible knowledge and unanswered questions. The tomb embodies both certainty, artifacts meticulously catalogued, inscriptions carefully preserved, and uncertainty in the voids that may yet conceal forgotten truths. Tutankhamun's resting place continues to challenge expectations, inspire inquiry, and evoke the enduring allure of ancient Egypt, where every artifact and architectural choice holds meaning beyond the immediately visible. Even as modern technology advances and archaeologists probe with increasingly sophisticated tools, KV-62 maintains its quiet defiance. The hidden chamber, whether a narrow niche, a grand space, or a symbolic void, remains a testament to the ingenuity, foresight, and spiritual depth of ancient Egyptian culture. It reminds us that even in a tomb fully explored and documented, mysteries persist, inviting wonder, reflection, and the patient pursuit of knowledge across time. The tomb of Tutankhamun, with its glittering treasures and potential hidden spaces, serves as a powerful symbol of the enduring dialogue between the known and the unknown. Its walls whisper of kings and queens, of architects and priests, of political intrigue and religious devotion. And as we imagine the secrets that may yet lie beyond our vision, we are compelled to ask, what else remains concealed behind these ancient stones? And what will the next generation of explorers, scholars, and technologies reveal? In KV-62, the past and the present converge, and the mysteries of ancient Egypt continue to call, silently, across millennia. From the shadowed corridors and potential hidden chambers of Tutankhamun's tomb, where the tension between discovery and mystery lingers, we turn to a different kind of Egyptian burial, a tomb not of kings, but of master craftsmen whose lives were intimately connected to the construction of the royal necropolis. At Deir el-Medina, nestled against the cliffs on the west bank of the Nile, lies the tomb of Ka and Merit, a remarkable window into the lives, beliefs, and enduring enigmas of ancient Egypt's skilled artisans. Unlike KV-62, whose fame is tied to the opulence of a boy king, KV-8's quiet dignity emerges from precision, daily ritual, and the profound care with which its occupants approached death and eternity. Ka, a master architect and overseer of the royal tombs during the 18th dynasty, and his wife Merit, were accorded the rare privilege of a richly adorned tomb despite their non-royal status. Their burial place, discovered nearly intact in the early 20th century, offered an extraordinary glimpse into the funerary practices of Deir el-Medina. The tomb's chambers are filled with objects of practical and ceremonial significance: furniture, jewelry, clothing, and implements that reflect both personal devotion and professional prestige. Yet among these tangible artifacts lies a subtler mystery: how a relatively modest tomb could preserve such a complex record of daily life, status, and belief with remarkable clarity over millennia. As one moves through the tomb, the walls seem to breathe with the presence of its occupants. Scenes depict Ka and Merit receiving offerings, attending ritual ceremonies, and interacting with deities who ensure their safe passage into the afterlife. These images are vibrant, detailed, and imbued with symbolism, reflecting both a sophisticated understanding of religious doctrine and the intimate personal values of the couple. Some hieroglyphic texts are straightforward, recording prayers and spells to safeguard the deceased, while others hint at deeper, perhaps esoteric meanings. Could certain depictions, subtle motifs, or arrangements of objects encode knowledge lost to time, rituals, astronomical alignments, or symbolic relationships intended only for the initiated? One of the most striking features of Ka and Merit's tomb is the preservation of their funerary goods. Unlike many royal tombs, where grave robbers stripped riches soon after burial, Cave 8 remained largely untouched, leaving an intact record of Middle Kingdom and early New Kingdom funerary customs. Among these items, the arrangement of objects and their apparent ritual significance raises questions. Were some items purely utilitarian, meant for the deceased's comfort in the afterlife, or did certain artifacts hold symbolic or ceremonial purposes beyond our understanding? Could the placement of items, tools, chests, amulets, reflect a hidden codification, a blueprint linking the material and spiritual worlds, much like the celestial alignments of the tombs of kings? The tomb also offers insight into the social and political life of Deir el-Medina, a village of artisans tasked with constructing the royal tombs. Ka, as an overseer, wielded considerable influence, yet his authority was bounded by the hierarchies of the royal administration and the complex networks of religious practice. How might the tomb's design, its inscriptions, and its preserved artifacts reflect not only personal devotion, but also a subtle assertion of status within the community? And what might they reveal about the interaction between craft, ritual, and power in a society where monumental projects like the pyramids and royal tombs defined both political authority and spiritual cosmology? Despite its apparent clarity, the tomb of Ka and Merit is not without enigmas. Certain hieroglyphs appear abbreviated or unusually formatted, prompting speculation about whether they conceal private messages or esoteric knowledge. Some scholars propose that the tomb's iconography reflects not only established funerary doctrine, but also personal innovations, a subtle layering of tradition and individual expression. Were these choices purely artistic, or could they encode information about astronomical observations, ritual timing, or the calendrical cycles that governed Egyptian religious life? The possibility that non-royal tombs contained sophisticated symbolic structures challenges assumptions about the exclusivity of cosmic knowledge and ritual practice in ancient Egypt. The careful preservation of textiles, food offerings, and wooden artifacts further deepens the mystery. Many of these items survived in remarkable condition, revealing the meticulous preparation and selection of goods for the afterlife. Could the arrangement of such objects carry meaning beyond the practical? An intentional pattern or encoding designed to guide the deceased, or even convey messages to future generations? The interplay of function, symbolism, and sacred intention creates a tension in KV8 that mirrors broader questions in Egyptology. What was the balance between practicality and ritual, between everyday life and cosmic significance, in the design and use of these burial spaces? Ka and Merit's tomb also hints at connections with broader religious and political currents of the 18th dynasty. The artisans of Deir el-Medina were central to the creation of royal tombs, yet their own burials, like Cave 8, reveal a microcosm of the larger religious and cosmological beliefs at play in Egypt at the time. The presence of protective deities, the careful depiction of funerary rites, and the alignment of objects all suggest a comprehensive understanding of ritual, even outside the royal sphere. Could the tomb's contents also reflect knowledge transferred from royal projects, insights into architecture, astronomy, or ceremonial practice that were encoded subtly in personal tombs for preservation or secrecy? There is also the question of spatial symbolism. Cave 8's chambers are relatively small, yet their arrangement, orientation, and decoration seem carefully calculated. Do these elements mirror celestial or theological patterns, as seen in the tombs of kings, albeit on a smaller scale? The possibility that even a non-royal tomb could encode sophisticated knowledge raises questions about access to sacred information in ancient Egypt. Was esoteric understanding reserved solely for the pharaoh, or did master artisans like Ka possess specialized insight into religious, architectural, or cosmic principles? The tomb invites reflection not only on its inhabitants, but also on the human experience of death and memory. Ka and Merit were not immortal monarchs, yet their burial demonstrates a profound concern for the afterlife, continuity, and legacy. Each object, each hieroglyph, each ceremonial arrangement serves as both a practical preparation for eternity and a message to the living about status, devotion, and cosmic understanding. How did artisans, intimately involved in the construction of royal tombs, adapt these practices for themselves? And what does this reveal about the permeability of ritual knowledge across social strata in ancient Egypt? In contemplating K58, one senses the intimate interplay between the tangible and intangible, the physical artifacts and the spiritual, symbolic, or cosmological dimensions that may remain hidden. Even after decades of study, new questions continue to emerge. Could there be objects or inscriptions yet undiscovered within the tomb? Are there symbolic patterns we have yet to decipher, or encoded knowledge of celestial or calendrical significance? How do the practices observed in Ka and Meret's burial illuminate broader principles of Egyptian funerary art, architecture, and ritual? The tomb of Ka and Meret, in its quiet preservation and meticulous construction, exemplifies the coexistence of knowledge, ritual, and mystery that defines much of ancient Egypt. It reminds us that even outside the grandeur of royal tombs, individuals engaged with profound spiritual, symbolic, and practical concerns, leaving behind traces that challenge modern understanding. KV8 is both a record and a puzzle, a testament to personal devotion, professional skill, and the enduring human desire to connect with eternity. As we imagine the tomb in its original state, the gleam of polished wood, the delicate arrangement of offerings, the carefully painted hieroglyphs, we are drawn into the intimate world of its occupants. Ka and Meret's resting place invites us to consider the transmission of knowledge, the preservation of tradition, and the subtle interplay of power, craft, and spirituality. And it leaves us with a lingering question, one that resonates across the Valley of the Dead. What other truths, patterns, or secrets lie quietly in the tombs of artisans, waiting for those patient enough to observe, measure, and imagine? From the gleaming apex of Amenemhat III's Pyramidion, a fragment of stone that once reflected the sun and bridged the human and divine, we return to the quiet, shadowed corridors of Giza, where another story unfolds, not of kings at the zenith of their power, but of a queen whose life and resting place reveal the intricate interplay of status, devotion, and mystery in Old Kingdom Egypt. The tomb of Meresankh III, a princess and later queen of the 4th dynasty, offers a remarkable lens through which to view the Giza plateau beyond the monumental pyramids, an intimate space where artistry, hierarchy, and ritual converge, leaving clues both tangible and tantalizingly elusive. Meresankh III was the granddaughter of Khufu, the builder of the Great Pyramid, and her tomb, designated G 7530 to 7540 in the eastern cemetery of the Giza necropolis, reflects the stature of her lineage, while simultaneously presenting enigmas that have puzzled archaeologists for decades. Approaching the tomb, one is struck by its relatively modest entrance, carved into the limestone bedrock, its understated exterior belying the richness contained within. Descending through narrow corridors into a central burial chamber, the visitor encounters walls adorned with finely executed reliefs depicting the queen in various ritual contexts, offering scenes, depictions of family members, and interactions with deities designed to ensure her safe passage into the afterlife. The artistry is exceptional, precise, and elegant, yet certain motifs and details seem unusually deliberate or enigmatic, hinting at symbolic layers that challenge our understanding. The tomb's structure itself raises questions. Unlike the grand pyramidal monuments, Meresankh III's burial chambers are designed with both accessibility and secrecy in mind. Side rooms and storage niches, some containing remains of funerary goods, suggest a careful orchestration of space, perhaps intended to reflect cosmological principles, hierarchical significance, or ritual priorities. Were some of these spaces designed purely for functional burial items, Or could hidden chambers or symbolic voids exist, as in later royal tombs, that have yet to be uncovered? The arrangement of corridors, the proportion of rooms, and the relative simplicity of certain sections invite speculation about whether the tomb's design encodes meanings that escape immediate observation. Among the most intriguing aspects of Meresankh III's tomb is the preservation of its funerary artifacts. Excavations revealed jewelry, wooden furniture, ceremonial objects, and remnants of clothing, all arranged with meticulous care. Unlike tombs ravaged by time or looting, G 7530 to 7540 offers a near pristine record of funerary practices for a non-pharaoh of high status. Yet this abundance of preserved items also raises questions. Did the selection and placement of these goods follow strictly conventional funerary formulae, or were they deliberately chosen to convey personal, political, or cosmic messages? Could the arrangement of objects, the placement of inscriptions, or the symbolic motifs reflect knowledge of ritual, astrology, or numerology that remains partially undeciphered? The tomb's reliefs provide further layers of intrigue. Meresankh III is often depicted performing or receiving rituals, yet some scenes are subtly atypical for the period. Certain gestures, proportions, or combinations of symbols appear unique, prompting speculation that they may encode esoteric knowledge, familial claims, or ritual instructions. Could these deviations from convention indicate that the tomb's designer, or the queen herself, sought to communicate subtler truths, messages that were meant to endure across generations yet remain veiled to the uninitiated? And if so, what does this suggest about the transmission of knowledge and ritual in the elite circles of Old Kingdom Egypt? The queen's lineage and political context add depth to the mystery. As the granddaughter of Khufu, Meresankh III occupied a position of significant prestige, yet she was not a reigning monarch. Her tomb therefore occupies a liminal space, reflecting both royal association and personal status. The prominence of her burial and the quality of its decoration suggest an extraordinary attention to legacy and memory. Could aspects of the tomb have been designed to assert familial continuity, protect sacred knowledge, or even obscure sensitive details regarding the lineage and succession of the Fourth Dynasty? The careful balance between visibility and concealment seems intentional, inviting contemplation of the interplay between power, secrecy, and ritual expression. The material composition of the tomb is also noteworthy. Carved into limestone bedrock, its chambers were carefully engineered for durability, yet subtle irregularities in walls and ceilings suggest either practical adaptations to geological constraints or intentional design choices with symbolic resonance. Could the orientation of the chambers, the positioning of reliefs, or even the angles of the ceilings have been intended to interact with light, shadow, or celestial events? Ancient Egyptian architects often integrated astronomical observation into their constructions. Might Meresankh III's tomb hold traces of such knowledge, subtle markers intended to guide her soul or to synchronize ritual practice with cosmic cycles? The discovery of the tomb also sparked debate about burial practices and mortuary symbolism. Funerary inscriptions provide formulas for protection, eternal sustenance, and transformation, yet their combination with non-standard motifs leaves open the possibility of undiscovered symbolic codes. Were certain images deliberately ambiguous, meant to conceal esoteric knowledge or to provide dual readings depending on the observer's ritual proficiency? And if these hidden meanings exist, what might they reveal about the spiritual and intellectual world of the Old Kingdom elite? Meresankh III's tomb also demonstrates the intersection of personal devotion and communal practice. The reliefs emphasize family connections, divine intercession, and ritual efficacy, reflecting a worldview in which mortality, memory, and cosmic order are deeply intertwined. Could the selection of scenes and objects also serve as a testament to the socio-political climate of Giza, where artisans, priests, and royal officials navigated complex hierarchies while preparing for the afterlife? How does the tomb illuminate the relationship between human agency and cosmic order, between individual aspiration and the collective ideals of a civilization that revered the eternal? The preservation of the tomb raises further questions. Certain chambers, niches, and decorative elements remain partially obscured or inaccessible, either due to collapse, deliberate sealing, or erosion. Could these areas contain artifacts, inscriptions, or symbolic elements that might deepen our understanding of the Queen's life, her family, or her spiritual journey? Might undiscovered elements reveal information about the evolution of funerary art, the development of ritual practice, or the transmission of knowledge across the Fourth Dynasty? Even fragments of additional decoration, if found, could illuminate aspects of Egyptian cosmology, social hierarchy, or technological skill that have so far eluded modern interpretation. Walking through the tomb, one becomes aware of the interplay between the tangible and the intangible. The physical artifacts, wooden chests, jewelry, textiles, speak to the material culture and daily life of Egypt's elite, while the inscriptions and reliefs gesture toward cosmic order, divine intervention, and the eternal journey of the soul. Meresankh III's tomb, like the Pyramidion of Amenemhat III before it, is a site where human skill, spiritual devotion, and intellectual ambition converge, creating a space that is both accessible and enigmatic, comprehensible and mysterious. Ultimately, the tomb of Meresankh III invites reflection on the persistence of mystery within even well-documented sites. Despite decades of archaeological study, the space continues to pose questions about the purpose of certain architectural choices, the meaning of symbolic deviations, the possibility of hidden chambers, and the full significance of its preserved artifacts. It serves as a reminder that in ancient Egypt, as in all human civilizations, the boundary between the known and the unknown is fluid, inviting curiosity, careful observation, and imaginative engagement. As we contemplate the corridors, reliefs, and hidden niches of G 7530 to 7540, we are drawn into a dialogue across millennia, a conversation between the past and the present. The tomb of Meresankh III does more than preserve the memory of a queen. It challenges us to ask questions, to imagine, and to recognize that even in spaces meticulously studied, mysteries endure. What further knowledge lies hidden within its walls, waiting to be uncovered? And how might these discoveries deepen our understanding of the Old Kingdom, the Giza Plateau, and the intricate interplay of human aspiration, ritual, and cosmic design that defines the ancient Egyptian worldview? From the intimate corridors and carefully adorned chambers of Meresankh, the Third's tomb at Giza, where the lives and legacies of the Old Kingdom elite are preserved in limestone and pigment, we now shift our gaze slightly northward, across the sands of the Memphite necropolis, to the pyramid complex of Sahure at Abusir. Unlike the grand pyramids of Giza, Sahure's complex speaks to a period of architectural experimentation and artistic innovation in the Fifth Dynasty, a time when the pharaohs' tombs became more than burial sites. They were reflections of cosmic order, political authority, and religious devotion, carved and arranged to echo the eternal cycles of life, death, and the divine. Approaching Sahure's pyramid, one is immediately struck by its understated elegance. Though the core of the structure has been largely eroded over millennia, the surrounding mortuary temple and causeway retain a sense of deliberate design, a dialogue between stone, space, and sacred ritual. Reliefs of extraordinary quality cover the walls of the temple, intricate depictions of the king's offerings to deities, naval expeditions, exotic animals, and processions of tribute from distant lands. These images are not mere decoration. They are ceremonial statements, carefully calibrated to communicate divine favor, royal authority, and the pharaoh's role as intermediary between gods and mortals. Yet, even in their apparent clarity, certain motifs invite further inquiry. Could the placement of these reliefs, their orientation, or the symbolic patterns they form carry hidden astronomical or cosmological significance, subtly encoding knowledge for those initiated in ritual practice? The causeway, stretching from the mortuary temple to the valley temple, offers additional layers of mystery. Its walls are carved with scenes of the king's voyages, military expeditions, and offerings, each meticulously arranged in sequential order. Scholars have noted the unusual precision and narrative coherence of these depictions, suggesting both high artistic achievement and careful conceptual planning. But why this particular arrangement? Could the sequence itself serve as a symbolic map, guiding the deceased king's spirit through a ritualized journey, or even reflecting celestial paths observed by priests and architects? Might the reliefs encode calendrical or astronomical information, now lost to time, yet intentionally integrated to align the king's tomb with the cosmos? Sahure's mortuary temple introduces further enigmas. Its construction demonstrates a mastery of architectural planning, with carefully proportioned chambers, sanctuaries, and offering halls. Yet, fragments of evidence suggest a deliberate blending of tradition and innovation. Certain structural elements deviate from the conventions established in earlier complexes, hinting at experimentation in spatial design, ritual functionality, or symbolic resonance. Could these differences reflect theological shifts within the Fifth Dynasty, or were they intended as secret markers, accessible only to priests and initiates, designed to guide the king's spirit and maintain cosmic balance? The reliefs themselves offer tantalizing hints of the wider world in Sahure's time. Scenes of foreign expeditions and exotic tribute suggest a king aware of and actively interacting with distant lands, capturing both the economic and spiritual dimensions of rulership. Yet the accuracy and placement of these images raise questions. Were they purely ceremonial, idealized depictions, or do they reflect firsthand knowledge of geography, trade, and diplomacy? Could the reliefs encode symbolic messages about the pharaoh's divine mandate or the cosmological order that underpinned Egyptian governance? And if so, what methods did artisans employ to blend factual observation with ritualized representation? The pyramid itself, though largely eroded, retains a silent resonance. Its original polished limestone casing would have gleamed in the sun, an apex connecting heaven and earth, much like the Pyramidion of Amenemhat III. Could its alignment with celestial bodies or solar phenomena reflect an intentional correspondence with the king's role as an earthly manifestation of divine order? Ancient Egyptian architects often integrated astronomical and symbolic precision into their constructions. Might Sahure's pyramid contain evidence of advanced knowledge, hidden in angles, orientation, or proportional relationships that guided ritual practice and celestial observation? Among the most intriguing aspects of Sahure's complex are its less visible features: subterranean chambers, subsidiary structures, and potential voids. Archaeological investigations have revealed the presence of satellite pyramids and ancillary tombs, yet questions remain. Were these structures purely functional, serving as storage or ritual spaces, or could they contain symbolic or esoteric elements designed to enhance the pharaoh's spiritual journey? Might they also encode information about succession, religious hierarchy, or the interplay of royal power and divine order in ways that have yet to be fully deciphered? The artistry of Sahure's complex further challenges modern interpretation. Certain reliefs depict scenes of animals, exotic flora, and mythological creatures with astonishing detail, prompting speculation about their symbolic or cosmological significance. Were these representations purely aesthetic, or did they serve as ritual instruments, symbolic intermediaries, or markers of sacred knowledge? Could some motifs function as encoded guides for priests, or as protective devices to safeguard the pharaoh in death, linking earthly practice with celestial oversight? The materials and construction methods used in Sahure's pyramid and mortuary complex add another dimension to the mystery. Quarried limestone, carefully cut granite, and painted reliefs testify to exceptional technical skill and logistical organization. How did artisans achieve such precision with the tools available, and what knowledge of geometry, astronomy, or engineering underpinned their work? Could the methods themselves, now partially lost to time, encode principles of sacred geometry, ritual alignment, or cosmological understanding that were intended to endure alongside the pharaoh's eternal presence? The pyramid complex also evokes broader questions about the evolution of funerary architecture and ritual in the 5th dynasty. Sahure's reign marked a period of transition, experimentation, and consolidation, with new artistic and religious trends emerging alongside traditional forms. Might the complex reflect hidden innovations in ritual performance, celestial observation, or symbolic representation? And could its design have influenced subsequent pyramids, guiding later pharaohs in their attempts to harmonize earthly tombs with cosmic principles? Walking through Sahure's complex, one senses the dialogue between permanence and impermanence. The temple walls, the reliefs, and the partially preserved pyramid serve as enduring markers of human ambition, yet they also reveal the fragility of material memory. Time, erosion, and looting have obscured much of the original context, leaving tantalizing gaps that challenge our understanding. What further secrets might lie buried beneath the sand or hidden within structural voids? Could undiscovered inscriptions, concealed chambers, or symbolic patterns illuminate aspects of 5th dynasty cosmology, governance, or ritual practice that remain inaccessible to us today? Ultimately, the pyramid complex of Sahure at Abusir embodies the delicate interplay between the known and the unknown. Its artistry, architecture, and symbolic richness invite reflection on the ambitions, beliefs, and technical achievements of an ancient civilization. As we contemplate its corridors, reliefs, and sunlit angles, we are reminded that even well-studied sites preserve layers of mystery, prompting us to ask questions that transcend time. What knowledge did Sahure's architects and priests embed within the complex? How did the pharaoh's earthly presence and divine mandate intersect in these spaces? And what secrets, still hidden beneath stone and sand, might one day reveal a deeper understanding of the intersection between human intention and cosmic design? Sahure's pyramid complex stands not only as a testament to Middle Kingdom ingenuity, but also as a silent dialogue with the present, challenging us to see beyond the visible, to read between the lines of relief and stone, and to imagine the mysteries that remain buried. In its shadows and angles, its preserved art and eroded surfaces, we confront the enduring enigma of ancient Egypt, a civilization that meticulously recorded life, power, and the cosmos, yet left fragments that continue to whisper unanswered questions, inviting discovery, speculation, and wonder. From the sunlit causeways and intricately carved reliefs of Sahure's pyramid complex at Abusir, where kings sought to immortalize their reigns through stone and ritual, we now turn to an artifact of a profoundly different kind, one that speaks not through monumental architecture, but through text, symbol, and spiritual guidance. The Book of the Dead, known to the ancient Egyptians as the Book of Coming Forth by Day, offers a portal into the complex beliefs surrounding death, transformation, and the eternal journey of the soul. Unlike pyramids or tombs, which communicate through scale, orientation, and visual artistry, the Book of the Dead speaks directly to the mind and spirit, a carefully curated guide for navigating the perilous path from the mortal world to the afterlife. Unrolling a papyrus scroll is an immersive experience. The elongated sheets, often brightly painted and meticulously inscribed, are filled with hieroglyphs and illustrative vignettes depicting gods, sacred rituals, and scenes of judgment. Each passage presents spells, incantations, and instructions designed to protect the deceased, provide sustenance, and facilitate passage through the complex terrain of the Duat, the Egyptian underworld. The illustrations themselves are both vivid and enigmatic. Serpentine rivers of fire, gates guarded by terrifying creatures, and the all-important scales of Ma'at, where the heart of the deceased is weighed against the feather of truth. These images are at once practical and symbolic, serving as navigational aids while simultaneously reflecting profound theological and cosmological ideas. The origins of the Book of the Dead are themselves shrouded in mystery. Emerging from earlier funerary texts, including the pyramid texts of the Old Kingdom and the coffin texts of the Middle Kingdom, these scrolls evolved over centuries, adapting to changing beliefs and artistic conventions. Yet despite the centuries of refinement, each version retains its enigmatic qualities. Why were certain spells included while others were omitted? What determined the order of spells, the placement of images, or the choice of protective deities? Could these selections reveal esoteric knowledge about the Egyptian perception of death, the structure of the cosmos, or even psychological insights into the fears and hopes of the living? Central to the Book of the Dead is the concept of journey and transformation. The deceased is guided through a series of trials, confrontations, and moral reckonings, culminating in the weighing of the heart before Osiris, the lord of the underworld. Here, judgment is absolute. A heart lighter than the feather signifies purity and acceptance into eternal life, while the unworthy face annihilation. The precision with which these trials are depicted, and the meticulous care in crafting spells for protection, suggests an intricate understanding of both ritual practice and human psychology. Yet the scrolls also contain elements that resist full explanation. Some spells, for instance, appear to reference locations, gates, or entities that do not correspond to known geographical or mythological structures. Were these purely symbolic constructs, or do they hint at layers of spiritual knowledge now lost? The artistry of the scrolls is equally compelling. The interplay of color, line, and form conveys not only narrative, but also authority and sacredness. Gods such as Anubis, Thoth, and Isis are rendered with deliberate attributes, gestures, and positioning, emphasizing their role in the cosmic order. But there are anomalies. Variations between scrolls, rare depictions of unusual deities, or minor deviations in iconography that suggest a dynamic tradition, one in which ritual knowledge may have been adapted, personalized, or even concealed. Could these subtle variations indicate regional practices, secretive priestly knowledge, or intentional encoding of information for the spiritually initiated? And if so, what truths might they conceal about the Egyptian worldview? Beyond the practical guidance for the dead, the Book of the Dead also provides a window into the Egyptian understanding of time, space, and cosmology. The Duat is described not merely as a subterranean realm, but as a layered, multi-dimensional space in which celestial bodies, divine forces, and cosmic cycles interact. Travel through the underworld is both physical and spiritual, governed by rules that blend moral, astronomical, and ritual dimensions. Could these descriptions reflect an ancient system of knowledge about natural cycles, astronomy, or temporal order, encoded within mythic language and ritual imagery? And if so, what might the ancient Egyptians have known about the interplay of celestial phenomena, human existence, and divine oversight that we have yet to fully comprehend? The scrolls also raise questions about the accessibility of spiritual knowledge. While some versions were reserved for royalty or the elite, others were commissioned by private individuals, suggesting that mastery over the afterlife was not solely the domain of kings. How did priests and scribes transmit this knowledge? Were certain spells considered esoteric, their full efficacy dependent on ritual performance or initiation? Could there have been layers of meaning intentionally concealed that transformed the scroll from a simple guide into a potent instrument of spiritual empowerment? Even today, the Book of the Dead challenges interpretation. Variations in wording, arrangement, and illustration raise questions about the intended experience of the reader or the deceased. Were the spells designed to be read aloud, meditated upon, or enacted ritually? Could the sequence of images and texts form a deliberate psychological map, guiding the soul through fear, uncertainty, and judgment toward confidence and immortality? And what might this suggest about the sophistication of Egyptian thought, blending theology, ritual, psychology, and art into a unified spiritual framework? Finally, the enduring fascination with the Book of the Dead lies in its tension between the known and the unknown. While archaeologists and Egyptologists have painstakingly cataloged and analyzed thousands of spells, scrolls, and illustrations, the scrolls continue to evoke questions that resist definitive answers. Are there hidden patterns or codes, subtle instructions woven into the hieroglyphs, or symbolic relationships yet to be uncovered? Could the scrolls contain practical or mystical knowledge that modern scholars have overlooked, obscured by centuries of interpretation or loss? As we contemplate the Book of the Dead, we are drawn into the delicate intersection of life, death, and eternity. It is a reminder that in ancient Egypt, death was not merely an end, but a complex journey, orchestrated through art, text, ritual, and devotion. Each spell, each illustration, each carefully inscribed glyph speaks to a civilization grappling with questions of mortality, morality, and cosmic order, questions that continue to resonate across millennia. What further layers of meaning lie hidden within these scrolls, waiting to be deciphered? And how might they deepen our understanding of the Egyptian vision of life, death, and the eternal journey that follows? In the shadowed chambers where these scrolls were placed, within the tombs of kings and nobles alike, the Book of the Dead remains a bridge between worlds. It is both a map and a mystery, a guide and an enigma, urging the living to consider the nature of existence and the journey that follows. Even as we study, catalog, and interpret, the scrolls retain a sense of wonder, a silent invitation to imagine, explore, and question the unseen realms that ancient Egyptians sought to navigate, and that continue to challenge our understanding today. As the papyrus scrolls of the Book of the Dead unfurl before us, offering glimpses into the carefully orchestrated journey of the soul through the underworld, our attention turns from text to temple, from spiritual guidance to monumental architecture. Across the sands of Abydos, the necropolis associated with Osiris, the god of the afterlife, resurrection, and judgment, lies a complex that has both fascinated and perplexed archaeologists for centuries. The discovery of the Temple of Osiris invites us into a space where myth, ritual, and history converge, and where every stone, column, and carving seems to whisper secrets of eternal life and divine power. Approaching the temple today, one is immediately struck by the layers of history embedded within its ruins. Though partially reconstructed and extensively excavated, the site retains an aura of mystery. Its long colonnades, vast courtyards, and sanctuaries speak to a civilization that understood architecture as more than functional. It was a medium of cosmic expression, a conduit for divine interaction, and a vessel for memory. Carvings on walls, pillars, and lintels depict Osiris in varying guises, as judge of the dead, as king of the underworld, and as a deity whose cycle of death and resurrection mirrors the natural world. Yet even these well-studied depictions raise questions. Certain motifs appear to be deliberately ambiguous, and inscriptions are at times fragmentary or unusually cryptic. Could these subtle deviations hold esoteric meanings, reserved for priests or initiates, that reveal a hidden layer of ritual or cosmology? The temple's spatial design itself is a subject of fascination. Axial alignment, sequential chambers, and sacred enclosures suggest careful planning aimed at guiding worshippers, and, perhaps symbolically, the deceased, through a ritualized journey. The pathway from outer courtyards to inner sanctuaries may have mirrored stages of spiritual transformation, moving from the profane to the sacred, from mortality to divine communion. But what principles determined these alignments? Were they purely symbolic, or did they correspond with celestial events, the rising and setting of particular stars, or even planetary cycles? The ancient Egyptians often encoded astronomical knowledge into their architecture. Might the Temple of Osiris serve as both a place of worship and a celestial observatory, linking earthly ritual with cosmic order? Among the most compelling elements of the site are the reliefs and inscriptions themselves. They illustrate festivals, offerings, processions, and divine interactions. Yet some images resist straightforward interpretation. Scenes of Osiris surrounded by enigmatic figures, animals, or objects have prompted debate among scholars. Are these representations symbolic shorthand for theological concepts, allegories for moral and cosmic order, or references to lost rituals and mythologies? Could they encode information about the cycle of life, death, and rebirth that was understood by the ancient priests but remains opaque to modern interpretation? And if so, what does that tell us about the depth of knowledge and ritual sophistication in Abydos? The temple's discovery also raised questions about historical continuity and reinterpretation. Although Abydos was a sacred site from the earliest dynasties, the Temple of Osiris we see today reflects multiple periods of construction, renovation, and artistic adaptation. Layers of stone, recarved reliefs, and reused materials suggest a long-standing effort to preserve sacred space while updating it for contemporary ritual or political needs. Did successive pharaohs seek to assert legitimacy by associating themselves with Osiris? Or were these changes motivated primarily by evolving religious ideology? Could the alterations conceal knowledge, ritual practices, or symbolic messages now obscured by time? Subterranean elements of the complex add another layer of intrigue. While much of the temple sits above ground, evidence suggests the presence of hidden chambers, passageways, or ritual pits beneath the courtyards. Were these spaces purely functional for storage or offerings, or could they have played a more symbolic or esoteric role intended to mirror the underworld itself? Might they represent stages of initiation or transformation experienced by priests or the deceased in a ritualized enactment of Osiris's death and rebirth? The very possibility of concealed spaces invites speculation. What secrets of spiritual practice, theology, or astronomy might remain hidden beneath the visible ruins? The artifacts uncovered during excavations further complicate our understanding. Figurines, ceremonial implements, and votive objects suggest a dynamic interaction between the living and the divine. Yet some items are unusual, incorporating iconography or materials not commonly associated with Abydos. Could these anomalies represent foreign influence, lost ritual practices, or symbolic innovations intended to convey secret knowledge? And if so, how might they illuminate the interplay between religion, politics, and cultural exchange in ancient Egypt? Equally fascinating are the temple's connections to death and the afterlife. Abydos was a center for Osiris worship, precisely because of the god's association with resurrection. Pilgrims traveled to the site to participate in rituals meant to secure protection, guidance, and rebirth after death. Inscriptions and reliefs depict offerings, symbolic journeys, and repeated cycles of death and renewal. Yet the deeper meaning of these practices remains partially elusive. Did they encode specific instructions for achieving immortality, guidance on moral conduct or cosmological understanding? Could aspects of the rituals have been intended not merely for the individual, but for maintaining universal order, linking the fate of humans with the cycles of nature and the cosmos? Even the temple's artistic choices prompt reflection. Certain reliefs depict Osiris in abstract or stylized forms, with proportions, gestures, or combinations of symbols that seem deliberate and nuanced. Are these merely artistic conventions, or do they convey hidden layers of meaning, perhaps accessible only to those trained in sacred knowledge? Might the placement of imagery, the alignment of figures, or the juxtaposition of symbols encode esoteric cosmology, philosophical insight, or ritual instruction? And if so, how much of this knowledge has been irretrievably lost, and how much remains waiting to be interpreted through careful study and imaginative engagement? The temple's discovery itself is a story of persistence and intrigue. Found amidst centuries of shifting sands and modern development, the complex challenges assumptions about the extent and sophistication of religious practice in ancient Egypt. It serves as a reminder that even in areas heavily studied, remnants of knowledge can lie hidden, awaiting excavation, interpretation, or insight. Could undiscovered inscriptions, sealed chambers, or symbolic patterns offer new revelations about Osiris, Egyptian ritual practice, or the conception of life and death? Might some aspects of the temple have been deliberately concealed by its builders, leaving intentional mysteries for future generations to ponder? Walking through the ruins today, one is struck by the interplay of permanence and impermanence. Stone endures, yet human memory and interpretation are fragile. The Temple of Osiris invites us to consider both what has been preserved and what has been lost, to reflect on the ingenuity of ancient builders and the complexity of the religious landscape they inhabited. It reminds us that in Egypt, as in all civilizations, the line between knowledge and mystery is never fixed. Every discovery opens new questions, and every interpretation leaves room for wonder. The discovery of the Temple of Osiris, with its layered history, enigmatic reliefs, and potential hidden spaces, challenges us to consider the delicate balance between human endeavor and divine order. What further secrets might lie buried beneath the sands of Abydos, waiting to illuminate the beliefs, rituals, and cosmology of ancient Egypt? How much did the temple's architects and priests know that we cannot yet comprehend? And in contemplating this sacred site, we are invited to ask, how did the living interact with the divine? And how did the dead traverse the path from mortality to eternity, guided by the enduring presence of Osiris? In the quiet courtyards, along the worn colonnades, and within the shadowed sanctuaries of the temple, the past speaks softly but insistently. The Temple of Osiris is not merely a collection of stone and pigment. It is a dialogue across millennia, a testament to the mysteries that ancient Egyptians sought to navigate, and an enduring invitation to ponder what remains hidden, waiting to be discovered, understood, and marveled at. Emerging from the shadowed sanctuaries of the Temple of Osiris, where stone, myth, and ritual intertwine to guide the soul through the mysteries of death and resurrection, we now turn our attention to another sacred space, one defined less by walls and roofs, and more by openness, reflection, and the subtle language of water. At the heart of Karnak, the sprawling, monumental complex dedicated to Amun-Ra, lies the sacred lake, a man-made body of water that has fascinated scholars, pilgrims, and explorers for millennia. Though its surface may appear calm, the lake is charged with significance, its still waters serving as both a mirror and a medium, connecting the earthly and the divine, the visible and the hidden, the living and the dead. Approaching the lake today, one is immediately struck by its sheer scale. Measuring approximately 200 by 350 meters, bounded by carefully constructed stone embankments, it reflects the towering pylons, colossal statues, and endless avenues of sphinxes that define Karnak's landscape. Yet the lake is more than an architectural feature. It is an instrument of ritual, a reservoir of sacred symbolism, and, perhaps, a repository of knowledge whose full depth we may never entirely comprehend. Its waters, calm and mirror-like, invite contemplation, and in the bright light of day, the reflections of columns and sky merge seamlessly with the water's surface, creating an almost surreal interplay between the terrestrial and the celestial. In the religious life of ancient Egypt, the sacred lake held a central role in purification. Priests would descend its stone steps to perform ablutions, cleansing themselves physically and ritually before participating in temple rites or handling sacred objects. Water was not merely a practical tool, it was an essential medium of transformation. In Egyptian cosmology, it represented the primordial waters of creation, the source from which all life emerged and to which it would ultimately return. Immersion in the lake was therefore both an act of hygiene and a profound spiritual gesture, a preparation for contact with the divine. But what else might the lake have symbolized? Could its reflective surface have been intentionally used as a mirror to meditate upon the heavens, or as a metaphorical threshold to the underworld, echoing the journey of the soul depicted in the Book of the Dead? The lake's construction itself raises intriguing questions. In such a hot and arid environment, how were its waters maintained over centuries? Archaeological evidence hints at sophisticated hydraulic knowledge, perhaps linked to the Nile's inundation, underground channels, or carefully engineered inflows and drainage systems. Could there have been aspects of ancient Egyptian hydrology that have since been lost to history? Knowledge that allowed them to sustain a body of water of this scale with such precision? The alignment of the lake also invites speculation. Its orientation, relative to temple axes and cardinal points, may not have been arbitrary. Was it designed to correspond with celestial events, the rising of particular stars, the solstices or lunar phases, so that ritual purification itself became synchronized with cosmic rhythms? Observing the lake, one cannot help but notice the subtle inscriptions and reliefs carved along its embankments. Birds, crocodiles, and other creatures populate these margins, symbolic representations of both divine protection and chaotic forces. The presence of these images suggests that the lake was more than a place of cleansing. It was a carefully curated environment, one that reflected the Egyptian understanding of balance between order and chaos. Some carvings are straightforward, illustrating known deities and ritual actions, yet others remain enigmatic, hybrid creatures, unusual symbols, or sequences of glyphs whose meaning continues to elude scholars. Were these intended for initiates, conveying esoteric knowledge of purification and cosmic order, or do they represent a symbolic language designed to engage the mind as well as the body? Pilgrims and priests alike interacted with the lake in ways that blur the line between practical and mystical. During festivals such as the Opet festival, ceremonial boats would traverse the water, carrying statues of Amun from Karnak to Luxor, accompanied by priests performing chants, rituals, and purifications. In these moments, the lake became a stage for the enactment of cosmic order, reflecting both human devotion and divine presence. Yet, even with careful study, many details remain obscure. How did the ancients measure ritual efficacy? Was there a precise choreography to the movements on the lake, designed to align with celestial positions or metaphysical principles? Could the lake itself, through its size, depth, and reflective qualities, have been conceived as a kind of ritual instrument capable of amplifying spiritual potency or mediating between realms? Submerged features of the lake add another layer of mystery. Archaeological investigations suggest the possibility of hidden platforms or ritual niches beneath the water, spaces that may have been used for specific ceremonies or as conduits for offerings. Were these physical structures purely functional, or did they possess symbolic significance, representing stages of initiation, or aspects of the underworld? Could the lake itself have been designed as a microcosm, a symbolic landscape where water, ritual, and architecture converge to mirror the journey of the soul, from purification to transcendence? Artifacts discovered along the lake's margins further deepen the intrigue. Votive offerings, ceremonial instruments, and rare inscriptions suggest that the lake was a locus of both public and secretive ritual activity. Some items, unlike those commonly found elsewhere in Karnak, incorporate unusual materials or iconography. Do these anomalies point to hidden or esoteric knowledge, accessible only to a select group of priests? Could certain rituals performed at the lake have been intended not only to cleanse, but to transform, to channel spiritual energy, or to communicate with forces beyond the ordinary perception of humans? Even the lake's seasonal and environmental dynamics may have played a symbolic role. The annual rise and fall of the Nile, which would have affected water levels, might have been integrated into the rhythm of rituals, aligning earthly and cosmic cycles. Could fluctuations in the lake's depth have been observed and ritualized as markers of time, indicators of sacred events, or symbolic representations of life, death, and rebirth? And if so, does this suggest a sophistication in Egyptian ritual practice that intertwined observation, symbolism, and spiritual intention in ways that are still not fully understood? The duality of the sacred lake is perhaps its most compelling mystery. It is at once visible and reflective, practical and symbolic, serene and charged with ritual energy. Standing at its edge, one senses a continuity with the past, generations of priests performing ablutions, pharaohs commissioning ceremonies, and pilgrims seeking purification or divine favor. Yet, beneath the calm surface, much remains unknown. Could there be submerged structures, lost inscriptions, or encoded spatial arrangements awaiting rediscovery? Might the lake have served as a living interface between the human and the divine, the temporal and the eternal, a reflection not only of the surrounding architecture but of the hidden order of the cosmos itself? In contemplating the sacred lake of Karnak, we are reminded that water in ancient Egypt was never ordinary. It was a medium of creation, regeneration, and transformation, a tangible manifestation of divine principles, and a conduit for spiritual practice. Its still surface conceals the movements of ritual, the whispers of the past, and the possibility of knowledge now obscured. As we peer across its expanse, we are invited to consider not only the visible world of stone, hieroglyph, and ceremony, but also the unseen realms of intention, cosmic alignment, and spiritual resonance. The lake's enduring power lies in this tension between the known and the unknown. It is a site of daily ritual and cosmic significance, a space where human devotion meets divine presence. And while archaeologists, Egyptologists, and historians have uncovered much about its construction, use, and symbolism, the sacred lake continues to evoke questions that defy definitive answers. What further secrets lie hidden beneath its waters? What messages, encoded in structure, proportion, or ritual, might remain to be discovered? And perhaps most intriguingly, what does the lake reveal about the Egyptian conception of purification, transformation, and the eternal journey from mortality to the divine? In its calm, enduring presence, the sacred lake of Karnak stands as a reminder that ancient Egypt's mysteries are never fully solved. Even as we study and interpret, as we measure and catalog, the lake retains a sense of quiet authority, a subtle invitation to reflection, and a suggestion that much remains hidden, waiting for those who approach with curiosity, patience, and a willingness to see the divine reflected in the still waters of the past. As we leave behind the serene waters of the sacred lake of Karnak, where ritual purification and reflection intertwined with the cosmic order, our journey brings us to one of the most tantalizing mysteries of ancient Egypt, the enigmatic tomb of Nefertiti. the queen whose beauty, power, and influence have captivated the world for over a century, remains shrouded in historical ambiguity. While her bust, discovered in Amarna, has immortalized her visage in marble and pigment, the question of her final resting place continues to elude scholars, archaeologists, and enthusiasts alike. What became of the great royal wife of Akhenaten? And why has her tomb remained hidden, if it indeed exists? To imagine Nefertiti's tomb, we must first picture the terrain in which it might lie. The Theban necropolis, sprawling along the western bank of the Nile opposite Luxor, is a labyrinth of sandstone cliffs, winding valleys, and rock-cut tombs that house the remains of pharaohs, nobles, and high priests. Here, the air carries the weight of centuries, each stone a silent witness to ritual, ambition, and the passage of time. Within these cliffs, tombs have been meticulously excavated over the past century, yet in many cases the full extent of what lies beneath remains unknown. Scholars have long speculated that Nefertiti's tomb might be concealed within or adjacent to one of these sprawling subterranean networks, perhaps even hidden within the tomb of Tutankhamun, as recent radar scans have suggested. The mystery deepens when we consider the historical context of Nefertiti's life and reign. As the queen of Akhenaten, she played a pivotal role in the revolutionary Amarna period, during which traditional religious practices were temporarily supplanted by the worship of the Aten, the sun disk. Yet after Akhenaten's death, Egypt swiftly reverted to its earlier religious orthodoxy, and many traces of the Amarna period were systematically erased or obscured. Could this political and religious upheaval account for the absence of Nefertiti's tomb? Was it intentionally concealed, dismantled, or disguised to protect her memory from erasure? Or might she have been buried elsewhere entirely, perhaps even in a location far removed from the canonical royal necropolises, as part of a carefully orchestrated effort to shield her from historical revisionism? Archaeological investigations have revealed tantalizing clues, yet they raise as many questions as they answer. Some Egyptologists propose that Nefertiti assumed the throne after Akhenaten's death, ruling as a co-regent or pharaoh in her own right under the name Nefer-Neferuaten. If so, her burial might have been accorded the privileges of a king, yet the evidence remains elusive. Radar scans of Tutankhamun's tomb have suggested the possible presence of hidden chambers beyond the known burial chamber, spurring speculation that Nefertiti might be interred there, her sarcophagus waiting, untouched, for millennia. Others argue that such chambers could hold other purposes entirely: storerooms, ritual spaces, or later modifications, leaving the connection to Nefertiti unproven. Yet, the very existence of these anomalies fuels the imagination. Could one of these sealed spaces hold the remains of a queen whose life and death are as enigmatic as the shifting sands of the desert? Nefertiti's tomb, like the queen herself, also challenges our understanding of artistic and architectural sophistication. The Amarna period, though brief, introduced striking innovations in tomb design, decoration, and iconography. Could a tomb built or modified during this time depart from traditional layouts, blending subtle symbolism with hidden chambers designed to evade discovery? Some have proposed that the tomb might employ clever optical illusions, concealed corridors, or protective mechanisms intended to preserve its occupant from tomb robbers or political adversaries. If this were the case, it would reflect a remarkable level of foresight, architectural ingenuity, and ritual sophistication, yet it also complicates modern efforts to locate it. How many tombs might we have overlooked, misinterpreted, or partially excavated, never realizing that within their walls lies evidence of one of Egypt's most iconic queens? The artifacts associated with Nefertiti provide another layer of intrigue. The famous painted limestone bust, with its striking symmetry, exquisite detail, and enigmatic expression, has sparked intense debate about the queen's personality, status, and influence. Yet other artifacts, inscribed stelae, statues, and reliefs, suggest a more complex narrative, one in which Nefertiti wielded unprecedented power, potentially even assuming kingship. Could her burial have reflected this elevated status, incorporating ritual practices, symbols, or spatial arrangements that remain opaque to modern understanding? Might some objects have been deliberately hidden, reused, or altered to obscure her presence from historical records? The interplay between artistic representation and archaeological record leaves us with a tantalizing puzzle. What messages, encoded in tomb design or artifacts, were intended to survive, or remain hidden, for posterity? Scientific advances have added both clarity and complexity to the search. Ground-penetrating radar, 3D imaging, and chemical analysis have allowed archaeologists to examine tombs in unprecedented detail without excavation. These technologies have revealed anomalies within Tutankhamun's tomb and other nearby sites, prompting renewed speculation about Nefertiti's final resting place. Yet, radar anomalies are notoriously difficult to interpret. Are they empty chambers, structural voids, or mere irregularities in rock? Could they conceal a burial untouched for millennia? Or are they false leads, artifacts of geological processes? The uncertainty is part of the enduring allure. Every discovery generates new hypotheses, and each hypothesis invites further investigation, reflection, and wonder. The tomb's potential location also raises questions about Nefertiti's relationship with Tutankhamun, her family, and the broader Amarna lineage. If she ruled as Nefer-Neferuaten, her tomb might reflect political alliances, familial ties, or deliberate departures from convention. Could the tomb have been positioned strategically, adjacent to the young king's burial, to signify continuity or legitimacy? Or was it purposefully separate, reflecting political intrigue, ritual secrecy, or symbolic statements about divine authority? Each scenario invites speculation but also underscores the profound gaps in our knowledge of Amarna-era burial practices and royal dynamics. Even the landscape surrounding the potential tomb sites offers clues and challenges. The Theban cliffs, with their jagged faces, hidden valleys, and intricate networks of tombs, create both opportunity and difficulty for discovery. Ancient Egyptians understood these spaces intimately, carving chambers to exploit natural rock formations, align with celestial events, or obscure entrances from unwanted visitors. Could Nefertiti's tomb have employed similar strategies, utilizing topography and natural concealment to safeguard its contents? And if so, what remains hidden beneath layers of sand, rubble, or later construction, waiting for the careful eye, patient investigation, or technological insight to reveal it? Perhaps most compelling of all is the way Nefertiti's tomb embodies the intersection of history, archaeology, and imagination. It is a space where the gaps in the record become a canvas for inquiry, where every artifact, inscription, and architectural detail sparks questions that may never be fully answered. What did Nefertiti herself envision for her burial? How did she negotiate power, ritual, and memory in a period of intense religious and political upheaval? And what lessons might her tomb, if found, teach us about the Amarna period, the role of queenship, and the mysteries of death, resurrection, and divine authority in ancient Egypt? The search for Nefertiti's final resting place also highlights the human dimension of archaeology. The thrill of discovery, the frustration of ambiguity, and the persistent drive to uncover what is hidden. Each excavation, scan, and study adds pieces to a puzzle that may never be fully complete. Yet the process itself, careful, meticulous, and respectful of both history and material evidence, reveals the enduring fascination of a queen whose life and death continue to captivate the imagination. In contemplating the enigmatic tomb of Nefertiti, we are invited to consider more than bricks, mortar, and buried treasures. We are asked to reflect on the interplay of memory, power, and ritual, on the fragility of historical record, and on the mysteries that endure even in a civilization as meticulously documented as ancient Egypt. Could her tomb remain concealed by design, a testament to ingenuity and secrecy? Might undiscovered chambers or artifacts one day reveal insights into her life, reign, or the Amarna period as a whole? Or are we destined to continue peering through the veils of time, reconstructing her story from fragments, shadows, and echoes? The intrigue surrounding Nefertiti's tomb is a reminder that even in a land where so much has been uncovered, mysteries persist. Beneath the cliffs of Thebes, within the labyrinth of rock-cut tombs, and perhaps behind walls we have yet to fully explore, the queen may rest, her legacy encoded in stone, water, and ritual. Her absence from the historical record is as compelling as her presence, leaving us to wonder what remains hidden and what might the future hold in revealing the truth about one of Egypt's most fascinating figures. Even as modern technology advances and archaeologists probe deeper into Theban cliffs, the tomb of Nefertiti continues to challenge expectations, to inspire questions, and to invite contemplation. It is a space where history, mythology, and mystery converge, a silent testament to the ingenuity, ambition, and spiritual vision of a queen who has captivated generations. And in that silence, in the spaces yet unexplored, the story of Nefertiti endures, waiting to be discovered, or perhaps to remain forever part of Egypt's eternal enigma. Emerging from the intrigue surrounding Nefertiti's elusive resting place, we now turn to a quieter, yet equally compelling mystery: the enigmatic inscriptions found on the coffin of Pharaoh Amenemhat. Unlike the grandeur of royal tombs, or the dramatic searches for hidden burial chambers, Amenemhat's coffin presents a subtler puzzle, one that speaks in the language of text, symbolism, and esoteric intent. The coffin itself is a testament to craftsmanship: polished wood, meticulously painted with protective deities and adorned with gilded hieroglyphs that wrap the deceased in a narrative of both life and afterlife. Yet it is the inscriptions, cryptic, layered, and sometimes contradictory, that have captured the attention of Egyptologists and mystics alike. To approach these texts, one must first consider the context of Amenemhat's reign and burial practices. As a ruler of the Middle Kingdom, his mortuary traditions reflected a synthesis of long-standing Egyptian ritual with localized innovations in funerary writing. The coffin was designed not merely as a container for the physical body, but as a conduit for transformation, a medium through which the deceased could navigate the perilous journey to the afterlife. Hieroglyphs, often meticulously arranged in horizontal bands or vertical columns, were far more than decorative. They were spells, invocations, and cosmic instructions. Yet in Amenemhat's coffin, scholars have noted anomalies: sequences of text that deviate from standard formulations, unusual combinations of deities, and phrases whose meanings remain ambiguous. What prompted these deviations? Were they errors, experimental compositions, or deliberate attempts to encode a deeper, perhaps hidden, layer of knowledge? The coffin's location in the necropolis further heightens its intrigue. Excavated within a tomb complex that had been disturbed over centuries, the coffin remained remarkably preserved, its inscriptions still vibrant under the muted light of underground chambers. Here the stillness is palpable, the weight of centuries, the scent of stone and dust, the quiet testimony of artisans whose hands once painted every line of hieroglyph. Yet the mystery of the texts resists immediate interpretation. Some sequences echo known funerary formulas, invoking the protection of Osiris, the guidance of Anubis, and the illumination of Ra. Others, however, appear almost anomalous, invoking lesser-known deities or referencing rituals scarcely attested elsewhere. Could these deviations reflect regional traditions, personal beliefs, or an experimental form of esoteric practice, preserved uniquely within Amenemhat's coffin? The form and style of the inscriptions themselves suggest deliberate complexity. Hieroglyphs vary in size, color, and orientation, creating a visual rhythm that draws the eye in unexpected directions. In some cases, lines of text curve around painted depictions of protective gods. In others, phrases are split across multiple panels, suggesting a temporal or sequential reading intended to guide the deceased step by step. Could this spatial arrangement itself encode layers of meaning, a ritual choreography meant to ensure the successful journey through Duat, the Egyptian underworld? Scholars have long debated whether such features were purely artistic or whether they were part of a sophisticated ritual framework that integrated text, image, and spatial orientation into a cohesive system of protection and transformation. Beyond their symbolic and ritualistic significance, the texts also raise tantalizing historical questions. Some hieroglyphs on Amenemhat's coffin contain rare or otherwise unattested spell forms, prompting speculation about the source of these innovations. Were they the creation of a particularly learned scribe, drawing from sources now lost? Or could they reflect local cultic practices, now vanished, that persisted in select mortuary workshops? The presence of unique symbols has even led some researchers to consider the possibility of a coded language, intended for those initiated in certain mysteries or ritual knowledge. If so, what secrets might these symbols conceal? Do they provide insight into Egyptian cosmology, spiritual practices, or the personal beliefs of Amenemhat himself? Scientific analysis has added further layers to the mystery. Infrared and ultraviolet imaging, as well as pigment composition studies, have revealed traces of modifications, corrections, and additions that were invisible to the naked eye. These changes suggest that the coffin was not a static object, but one subjected to ongoing care, revision, or ritual modification, possibly over generations. Were these amendments intended to correct errors, enhance protection, or update the text according to evolving religious or political circumstances? Each alteration invites reflection on the dynamic nature of Egyptian funerary practice, a tradition simultaneously rooted in strict ritual, yet flexible enough to accommodate adaptation, personal choice, or even secret experimentation. One of the most enigmatic aspects of Amenemhat's coffin lies in its apparent reference to celestial phenomena. Certain inscriptions describe journeys through the night sky, alignment with stars, or transformations into divine bodies that echo known cosmological texts, yet the exact interpretation remains disputed. Could these passages be purely symbolic, guiding the soul metaphorically through the heavens? Or might they encode observations of astronomy, reflecting a sophisticated understanding of celestial cycles integrated into funerary ritual? The ambiguity invites speculation, but resists definitive conclusion, leaving scholars and viewers alike suspended between the tangible evidence and the tantalizing possibilities of hidden knowledge. The coffin's narrative also intersects with the broader Egyptian concern with memory and legacy. Hieroglyphs were not merely functional, they were performative, enacting protection and transformation through inscription itself. Each word was believed to hold power, each symbol a conduit through which the deceased could interface with divine forces. In Amenemhat's case, the unusual texts suggest that his burial was intended to achieve more than the standard journey to the afterlife. Could he have been experimenting with new forms of spiritual protection, seeking knowledge beyond what was traditionally prescribed? Or was this an expression of status, demonstrating his access to esoteric wisdom unavailable to ordinary mortals? Even the physical arrangement of the coffin within the tomb adds layers of complexity. Placed amid other burial goods, ritual objects, and funerary furniture, It formed a microcosm of the cosmos itself, a carefully constructed environment that replicated the cycles of life, death, and divine regeneration. Could the inscriptions have been calibrated to interact with these objects, forming a synergistic system of ritual efficacy? If so, modern scholars may be missing crucial contextual information, as the original placement, orientation, and interaction of items may have been altered over centuries of excavation and disturbance. The coffin also raises questions about secrecy, concealment, and the transmission of knowledge. Some inscriptions appear intentionally obscure, employing rare hieroglyphs, truncated formulas, or seemingly contradictory sequences. Were these meant to be deciphered only by trained initiates? Or were they protective measures, designed to safeguard the text from tomb robbers or uninitiated eyes? The Egyptian reverence for hidden knowledge is well documented, yet Amenemhat's coffin stands out for the apparent depth of its mystery. Each line of text, each deviation from standard formula, invites contemplation, urging modern observers to consider not only what is written, but why it was written in this way, and for whom. Ultimately, the puzzling texts of Amenemhat's coffin embody the tension between revelation and concealment. They are simultaneously accessible and obscure, historical and enigmatic, ritual and personal. The coffin serves as a microcosm of ancient Egyptian belief, a bridge between life and death, a repository of cosmic order, and a reflection of the human desire to master the unknown. Every symbol, color, and stroke carries intention, yet much of that intention remains beyond our grasp. Could further analysis reveal connections to other Middle Kingdom inscriptions, or even to Amarna-era innovations that intersected with later practices? Might undiscovered coffins, manuscripts, or ritual sites illuminate these texts further, or are they destined to remain a profound, unsolved enigma? In contemplating Amenemhat's coffin, we are reminded that Egypt's mysteries are often as subtle as they are grand. While some tombs and monuments command attention with scale and spectacle, others, like this coffin, speak in whispers, inviting us to read between the lines, to study minute details, and to question assumptions. The texts challenge us to reconcile what is known with what is unknowable, to consider the possibility that the ancients possessed layers of understanding, symbolic depth, and ritual sophistication that remain partially hidden from modern eyes. And so, as we stand in the quiet of the Middle Kingdom necropolis, gazing upon a coffin whose inscriptions continue to puzzle and provoke, we are confronted with the enduring power of mystery itself. What knowledge, encoded in symbols and carefully preserved by artisans long gone, lies just beyond our reach? What insights into Egyptian cosmology, ritual practice, and the afterlife might yet be revealed by these seemingly simple texts? The coffin of Amenemhat is more than a vessel for the dead. It is a silent testament to the enduring human quest to understand, protect, and transform the journey beyond life. A reminder that some mysteries endure, waiting patiently for those who approach with curiosity, respect, and imagination. As we step away from the hushed corridors of Amenemhat's coffin, where cryptic texts whisper of protection, transformation, and hidden knowledge, our journey takes us northward along the Nile to the ancient temple complex of Dendera. Here, amidst the sandstone walls and pillared halls of the Temple of Hathor, we encounter a set of reliefs whose enigmatic forms have captivated historians, scholars, and alternative theorists alike. The so-called Dendera light reliefs. Unlike the inscriptions on coffins or the buried treasures of kings, these images are monumental, etched upon stone with precision and intent, their meaning both celebrated and debated across generations. To approach the Dendera reliefs, one must first imagine the temple itself. The complex sits in the fertile region of Upper Egypt, near the modern city of Dendera. rising like a mirage of ochre and cream against the desert horizon. Its construction spans centuries, with elements added and restored from the late Ptolemaic to Roman periods. Inside, the walls are lined with intricately carved depictions of deities, pharaohs, and ritual scenes. But among these, in the Hathor sanctuary, certain reliefs stand apart. Elongated, tubular objects held by figures, connected to bulbs and snakes, often described as pillars of light. The imagery is striking, almost cinematic, and has inspired interpretations that range from conventional religious symbolism to the more speculative notion that the ancient Egyptians had access to advanced technologies lost to time. Mainstream Egyptology explains the reliefs as symbolic representations of the mythological lotus, the serpent, and the Djed pillar, a combination of fertility, cosmic order, and the creative power of the sun god Ra. The bulb shapes, they argue, depict the lotus flower from which life emerges, and the snakes symbolize energy or divine essence, a motif repeated throughout Egyptian iconography. Yet even within this framework, questions arise. The objects are depicted in three-dimensional relief, and their forms do not correspond neatly to any known naturalistic or ritual object. Were they purely symbolic, a stylized representation of energy and illumination, or did they serve a functional or ceremonial purpose, one now obscured by time, ritual secrecy, or loss of context? The relief's design is strikingly dynamic. Tubes emerge from bases that resemble altars, culminating in bulbs that are often interpreted as emitting light or energy, with serpents coiling within or around them. In some depictions, priests or deities appear to handle these structures with deliberate care, their gestures precise and ritualized. Could these gestures signify the manipulation of divine energy, a visualization of sacred processes beyond human comprehension? Or were they purely metaphorical, a symbolic narrative illustrating the flow of spiritual power from deity to devotee? The ambiguity invites reflection, for the reliefs straddle the boundary between art, ritual, and something that hints at knowledge lost to the centuries. Adding to the intrigue is the context of the temple itself. The Dendera complex was a center of astronomical and calendrical study, its walls inscribed with star charts, solar cycles, and cosmic symbolism. Scholars have noted that the light reliefs appear in conjunction with depictions of ritual texts and ceremonial activities associated with the daily journey of the sun and the resurrection of the divine order. Could the imagery be a visual metaphor for celestial illumination, the energy of creation, or the symbolic act of bringing light into darkness? Or might it be evidence of a more practical understanding of light, electricity, or energy in a ceremonial context, encoded in sacred symbolism that we have yet to fully decode? Technological speculation has fueled fascination with the Dendera light reliefs in the modern era. Some theorists propose that the depictions represent an ancient form of electric lighting, perhaps employing filaments or gases, with the lotus or snake representing conductors of energy. Critics argue that such interpretations are anachronistic, projecting contemporary scientific understanding onto ancient symbolic art. Yet even without endorsing these claims, the reliefs undeniably convey an unusual combination of abstract form, dynamic depiction, and implied function. Could they represent an esoteric knowledge of energy, hidden within layers of symbolism, accessible only to the initiates of temple rituals? The discovery and subsequent study of the reliefs have only deepened their mystique. Scholars, travelers, and Egyptologists have documented them extensively, yet consensus on their exact meaning remains elusive. Attempts to physically replicate the structures, correlate them with known tools or rituals, or interpret them through textual sources have yielded tantalizing hints, but no definitive answers. Some hieroglyphic inscriptions accompanying the reliefs describe divine light, cosmic order, and rebirth, but they do so in metaphorical terms that resist literal interpretation. Could the combination of text and image encode information about cosmology, ritual technique, or spiritual energy that we are only beginning to grasp? Furthermore, the reliefs invite us to consider the broader philosophical and religious framework of Dendera. The Egyptian worldview fused the terrestrial and celestial, the material and the spiritual, in ways that often appear poetic, symbolic, and precise simultaneously. Light itself was both literal and metaphorical, a manifestation of the sun, the soul, and divine power. In this sense, the reliefs may be best understood as an artistic and theological attempt to render visible the invisible, to communicate the flow of divine energy through carefully structured symbolism. Yet even so, the unusual forms, technical precision, and dynamic composition continue to provoke questions. Why these shapes, these arrangements, and why here, in the Hathor sanctuary, rather than elsewhere? Archaeological and historical analysis has provided further insights, though mysteries remain. Comparisons with other temples, reliefs, and papyri suggest continuity of symbolic motifs, yet the Dendera light reliefs remain distinctive in their explicit tubular and bulbous forms. Were these innovations a product of local artisans' creativity, or do they reflect a specific esoteric tradition now lost? Some scholars speculate that the reliefs may have functioned as didactic tools, teaching initiates about complex metaphysical concepts through visual metaphor. Others suggest a purely ceremonial role, serving as a ritual focus, a conduit for the divine presence during temple ceremonies. The absence of contemporaneous written explanations leaves us to interpret through analogy, context, and careful observation. The reliefs also highlight the interplay of secrecy and revelation in Egyptian ritual. Temples were sites of public worship and private initiation, spaces where knowledge could be both displayed and concealed. Could the Dendera light reliefs have been intentionally enigmatic, a layered communication intelligible only to those trained in temple mysteries? If so, might modern observers be missing the full meaning because we lack access to the experiential, ceremonial, and initiatory context in which they were originally understood? The possibility that the reliefs encode knowledge partially obscured by time adds a layer of tension and wonder. What was meant to be seen, and what was meant to remain hidden? Even scientific inquiry, from infrared imaging to material analysis, offers only partial illumination. The reliefs are carved with meticulous precision, their depth, curvature, and spatial relationships carefully calibrated. Could this reflect an understanding of light, perspective, or perception that extended beyond symbolic representation? Or were these simply hallmarks of the artisan's skill, aesthetic choices, and ritual orthodoxy? The duality of technical mastery and symbolic ambiguity ensures that the Dendera light reliefs remain compelling for both scholars and enthusiasts, bridging history, art, and speculation in a single enigmatic tableau. Ultimately, the Dendera light reliefs challenge us to reconsider the boundaries of knowledge in ancient Egypt. They exist at the intersection of ritual, theology, and potentially lost technology or conceptual frameworks. Are we witnessing a sophisticated metaphor for divine illumination, a symbolic mapping of cosmic energy, or a record of esoteric practices that once flourished in Egyptian temples? Perhaps it is all of these, layered together, resisting simple explanation and inviting careful study, reflection, and imagination. As we stand before the reliefs today, the temple quiet except for the echo of footsteps and the whisper of wind across sandstone columns, we are confronted with the enduring power of mystery. Each curve, each coiling serpent, each tubular shape prompts questions that span the millennia. What knowledge did the ancients seek to preserve? What rituals were enacted in the dim light of the sanctuary, and how were these objects understood by those initiated in sacred practice? What aspects of their civilization, once carefully encoded in stone, remain beyond the reach of modern interpretation? In contemplating the Dendera light reliefs, we are reminded that Egypt's mysteries are not only monumental, they are subtle, encoded in line, form, and space, waiting for those willing to observe, question, and imagine. Even as we apply the tools of archaeology, history, and science, the reliefs resist full comprehension, leaving open the tantalizing possibility that the ancients communicated knowledge in ways that continue to elude us. What remains hidden in the interplay of symbol and ritual? What truths might be revealed through patient study, or perhaps only through insight yet to come? The reliefs of Dendera invite us to dwell in uncertainty, to accept the coexistence of clarity and ambiguity, and to embrace the enduring power of wonder. They remind us that even in a civilization as extensively studied as ancient Egypt, there are still visions, symbols, and ideas that challenge our understanding, provoking reflection on the ingenuity, spirituality, and imagination of a people who sought to capture the invisible forces of the universe in stone. In their silence, in their strange and luminous forms, the Dendera light reliefs continue to speak across the centuries, urging us to look closer, think deeper, and wonder what may still lie hidden beneath the sands of time.